Episode 2, With a Fox in a Box, Here, There, Anywhere.
Or Carrion Freaking Swift.
Or Fight, Flight, or Fox.
Or a cock in the pants is worth two in the bush.
Oh my God. Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who are reading this book for the very first time, and our supportive gamer husbands, Jon and Kyle, who are rereading and doing their very best not to give anything away with any of their facial expressions. I'm Lauren.
I'm Con.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jon. Welcome to our second episode on the Fae and Alchemy series by Callie Hart, as we cover Quicksilver chapters 9 through 15 today. This is a book club podcast, meaning there will be no spoilers here for future chapters or books. So, if you've only read up to this point, this is a safe space to read along with us. We'd love for you to share this podcast with your book bestie, your partner, your significant other, so you can enjoy this epic series together too.
Before we get too deep into today's mayhem, let's take a moment for some responsible podcasting. This is the part where we pretend we're mature adults and give you a heads up about what's coming. This book does not shy away from adult themes, and neither will we. This is your last chance to get out of here before we start discussing Kingfisher's forearms in excruciating detail.
If you're into exclusive events, unfiltered ramblings, and supporting your favorite chaos gremlins, our Patreon is the place to be. For $5 a month, you'll join our Book Bestie tier, where you get access to our cozy Discord, monthly book chats, live events, and a whole crew of readers who get your obsession. For $10 a month, you'll join our Found family and get all of that, plus early access to ad-free episodes, merch discounts, voting power, and a front row seat to all the behind-the-scenes fun.
Next, make sure you snag your ticket to Enchanticon. We're super excited to be attending as event influencers and hosting the Throne of Glass Fandom Foundation session at this year's convention, August 15th through 17th in St. Louis, Missouri. Enchanticon is an all-new expanded fantasy convention from Mischief Management, the masterminds behind LeakyCon and RomanceCon. So you already know it's going to be an epic weekend for fantasy fans of every kind. We'd absolutely love to see you there, so grab your tickets at Enchanticon.com, and don't forget to use our code FRIENDS15 to get 15% off.
And last but not least, if you love what we do, show us some love with a review on Apple Podcasts or Audible. It helps more readers find our little corner of the internet and keeps this wild adventure going strong. Here's a recent 5-star review on Apple Podcasts from our new bestie, Kelsey from Brooklyn, titled A+++++. My best friend introduced me to your podcast and also to Fourth Wing. Last week, while cooking and listening to your podcast, you guys shouted out my BFF's review, and I freaked out with excitement and almost burned myself. I'm ready for my time in the sun now. P.S. My cry counter for the Fourth Wing series is 1, but it is the first time a book has ever made me cry. Liam, my boy! Breaking heart emoji.
My boy!
Thanks, Kelsey.
Oh,
incredible.
From Brooklyn.
Kelsey.
And thank you, Kelsey's best friend.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yes. Absolutely. Of course.
Shout out to you.
Shout
Be
out.
careful cooking and listening. Keep that
Yes.
burn ointment handy.
Yeah, lavender oil. If you put it on a burn, it immediately stops hurting. It's amazing. Pro tip for everybody at home. Don't burn yourself just to try it, but never mind. I'm not
They
a
told me
doctor.
to
Don't
do
listen
it.
to me.
That was right. Pretty good.
Anyway, welcome back to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide. This is the part of the show where we highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. We are referencing the audiobook narrated by Stella Bloom and Anthony Palmini, as well as the written pronunciation guide in the front of the Quicksilver book. First off, in places, we have the Blind Pig, where Kingfisher and Renfus got drunk and gambled in this section. The Wicker Wood, also referred to as a prison. Only those guilty of the most heinous crimes are sent there. The trees entomb the evilest kinds of monsters. Spooky. Also mentioned in this section, Adjun's Sky, Anashurik, Cinder's Reach, Inishtar, Lothbrock, the Turadon Pass, and the Banks of the Darn. In characters, we have Renfus's nickname, Ren. He is also referred to in this section as Renfus Orinthian, Renfus of the Orinthian, Renfus Bloodsworn, and Renfus of the Silver Lake. And then Kingfisher
And
was
Renfus
also...
super hot. Okay, sorry. Renfus the super hot.
Perfect. I love it. That was Lauren's addendum to the pronunciation guide.
Can you do it in more of like a Valley Girl voice, like your best, like Renfus
Ooh,
the
nice,
Hot? Never mind, I just did it. You don't need to do it at all. No, but really.
Oh, okay, for real.
Yeah, get it.
And Renfist is super hot.
Nice. That's great. Perfect.
I love it. Okay. Kingfisher was also called in this section the Dragon's Bane Commander and the Fisher King. Then we get Oshalith, aka Osha. This is Kingfisher's nickname for Ceres, meaning a type of butterfly which hatches, lives, and dies in one day. Clements is the king's royal archivist. Finron is Fisher's father. Aida is the horse Ceres rides in this section. Bill is Kingfisher's horse. Rurik Dianthus. Dianthus was mentioned as a place in our first reading section, but here they mention the Dianthus line. And then there is a quote in this section that says, "You fought Malcolm on the banks of the Darn until the river flowed black with their blood." I was assuming Malcolm was a person or creature, but it could be the name of a collective people. I'm not sure yet, but that's what we have now.
Isn't it fun being a first-time reader?
So super fun. Cannot fact check anything. It's great.
You're doing great.
Thank you so much. Moving over to world building. In the library, Rusarius mentions the 7th era land records section. We hear about the Gilarians, the Fae in the mountains to the east, the Lycians, the seafaring Fae who lived on a southern island. Oathbound Fae is capitalized, so I'm assuming this does not encompass all Fae, but that some Fae are oathbound. That was capitalized, so I wanted to throw it in there. And then the krona, this is the currency mentioned in this section. In real life, krona with a K is the currency of Sweden. Just fun fact. And 1 krona equals about 11 cents in US dollars. So no idea if that has any relevancy to this book. But I am including fiefdom here as well because I had no idea what that was. But in feudal Europe, a fiefdom is a property or estate owned by a lord. So there's that as well. Lastly, Sarish is said a few times in this section. I think it's the title of chapter 15. I'm assuming that this means cheers.
I think that's just them saying Ceres' name while drunk. Ceres.
Sarish.
I wasn't sure what we were talking about. That's so funny.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyle. And now it's time for the chapter recaps, y'all. Take it away, Juan.
Oh, thanks, Juan. Okay, y'all, we're headed to the Fae Forge, passing the statues of the gods once again. Lane paying tribute, and Fisher flipping them off. Ha, classic. Fisher gives Ceres a brief history lesson on the way. There used to be a lot of humans in their world. Millennia ago, the Fae were cursed and received their canines and would feed on humans to maintain their immortality. Although the blood curse was lifted, the Fae kept their canines kind of just like a sign of their curse once upon a time. Then we get some confirmation that Lane and Fisher are siblings, which may not be like common knowledge around there. Lane gets super upset as her and Fisher argue and she kind of runs off. Ceres is torn but ultimately stays with Fisher to go to the forge while Ren goes after Lane. He loves her! And then we find out that the name Oshalith, Osha for short, is a type of butterfly. It hatches, lives, and dies all in one day. They make it to the forge. It's a mess, has clearly been neglected for a while. Sarah starts to clean it up by hand. She asks Fisher about the pendant. We get some info here about the Quicksilver. He also talks about the pendant being a quote-unquote relic. Sounds like it protects the wearer from Quicksilver. We also learn that he was in Belicon's army for a time and was called to travel between pathways because he had that pendant. It was apparently like really strong. He did once without it and paid the price. A healer got most of the Quicksilver out of him, but some remained, presumably what's left in his eye. She asks him why he didn't just let her die at the pool. Well, the Fae are currently at war. The pathways were once methods of trade and supplies. However, his ultimate motivator was that he saw her as a bargaining chip and decided to bring her here. Renfist comes to get her, and he comments on the place being a mess, and then Fisher just like wields his shadow magic and cleans it up in an instant, even furnishing the place with supplies, obviously making Ceres very upset. It's kind of funny. Ceres and Lane have breakfast the next morning and head to the library for some studying. We learned from Renfist that Fisher was quote-unquote gone for 110 years. Lane and Rosarius help Ceres look through some texts on alchemy and the 3 types of alchemists. 1 to discover the path to immortality, 1 to transmute different metals and ores, and the other to cure illness and disease. They assume that Ceres is clearly of the second path. She can, transmute different metals because of her history and what she was able to do with the Quicksilver. Apparently, these alchemists were also able to activate and deactivate the Quicksilver to travel the pathways. However, They also had a short lifespan, often going mad and killing themselves. Then, Ceres learns that when the Fae first visited the human realm, they spoke a different language, but eventually adopted the common Fae language, which is why she's able to read their texts and understand them and all that. And this is especially once Madra was there at Zilvarin and started her rule. Lane then confirms Madra is human, and while they assume it's some kind of magic, they are not sure how she's lived so long, who might have helped her, or how she stilled the pool with Solace with the sword. Then Ceres asks about their age. Lane kind of is apprehensive at first. She's like, this isn't something that we talk about in common. This is not a common conversation piece. But she eventually tells her that she is 1,486, and that Fisher, he kind of chimes in as he is eavesdropping, 1,733 years old. As he reveals himself from his shroud of shadows in the corner, he takes Ceres. They head to the forge again. They have an interesting conversation about the size of Fisher's COCK. Then she asks if he truly razed a city to the ground, and he replies yes. He doesn't really expand on that, so she asks where he was for those 110 years, and he just replies, hell. Then he forces her to hold some Quicksilver in her hand. It burns cold at first, but he pushes her to listen, and when she finally does, she hears voices chanting, Anarath more. She finally stills the Quicksilver, and it turns to a solid state in her hand. And then she socks him in the mouth. Ceres and Lane chat some more. We find out that Fisher is the result of their mother's first marriage. The king sent Fisher's father on a mission to Zilvarin, but then the gateways were sealed. Finron was accused of stealing the Quicksilver. Belicon wed Fisher's mother to save their name for the whole traitorous husband kind of thing, but also because he needed money, and they apparently had a lot of it. Belicon just wasn't expecting Fisher to be part of that too. She eventually had Lane, but died shortly after her birth. Fisher stops by their room after this conversation. He's hungover. He's got a plate of food. He and Ceres have a funny, God, he's hot, but I shouldn't, but I can't stop looking. Hey, I'm Fae, I can smell your arousal. Blushing, change of subject. And he eventually leaves because Lane says that it smells like sex, which makes Fisher choke down some laughter, and he takes off. More studying at the library leads to learning that Belicon has a large pool of Quicksilver under the palace. There's also a pool at Sanisroth in their council halls, Galarian in a hall perched on a mountain peak, and Lycian, the seafaring fae located deep in a sea cave, apparently. Back in the forge with Kingfisher, sexual tension rises faster than the heat from the hearth burning right next to them. Fisher explains that their goal is for Ceres to quote-unquote wake the Quicksilver, to try and bind other things to it, to try and create a relic. And then they find this cute little fox hiding in the forge. Fisher goes to kill it, but Ceres doesn't let him, earning a bite, but a new, very furry friend. They get to work. Fisher, shirtless, lots of tattoos, and sweat. She wants to hold his pendant to see if she can sense any other materials. They get close. Tension rises more. And then she kisses him. And she finds herself straddling him and grinding up all on that D. She finally pulls away and has him get Ren to come take her back to her room. Having an idea of where the Quicksilver is, she tries to make a break for it the next day. Winding her way down underneath the castle, she finally finds the pool, wakes it, and right as she's about to step through, a wind blows her away from it, and shadows form as Kingfisher appears, armored up and wielding Nemerel. He's not happy because that little grinding stunt that she pulled was to snatch the ring off his finger so she could go through the pathway, but joke's on her, the ring is just a ring. He let Lane think that the ring protected him when he was saving Ceres. Ceres basically tells him that she'll never stop trying to get back to Zilvarin and to Hayden, so he makes her a deal. He'll go now and bring back one person from Zilvarin. In return, she has to agree to do whatever it is he asks to help him forge new relics and other items. That's right. She agrees, making a blood oath with him, choosing to have him find and bring Hayden. He goes through, she seals it behind him to wait. While she's waiting, she decides to name the little fox Onyx. How fitting for after our Empyrean series, right? After an hour has passed, she opens the pathway and Fisher comes back through with a body in tow. She gets the pendant back on Fisher and closes the gate quickly. As Fisher recovers, she checks on Hayden and whirls on Fisher as she realizes that he brought back none other than Carrion Swift. They make their way out of the palace, Fisher getting cleaned up, healed, and leaving a note for Wren. They head to the stables and start their journey away from the palace. Fisher reminding Ceres of the fine print of their little blood oath. Ceres makes sure that she has Onyx, and they head on their way. They travel through a place called the Wicker Wood. Ceres gets a little creeped out by some quote-unquote shades, basically ghosts who relive their death over and over in the woods. They have a fun little conversation on the way about how he knew that she was going to pull something back at the forge and knew that she snagged his ring. They finally make it to a road, which leads to a building resembling a pub, and they head inside to wait for Wren. She notices all kinds of creatures as they find a place to sit. He tells her he's taking her to where he was born, back to Kalish. She's heard the name before, recognizing it as a literal war zone. Wren finally joins them, telling Fisher that Lane is furious, clearly. We get confirmation that Fisher took the sword, Solus, and that it's actually Fisher's father's, Finron's, god sword. Whew. Fisher gets a little heated with Wren and has an outburst, which makes everyone look their way. The people start to whisper about Wren, but soon turn their attention to Fisher. They try to leave as everyone stares, but are stopped short by a warrior looking for Fisher's blessing, recounting a battle that Fisher was a part of, and then, one by one, more creatures approach them, recounting tales of Fisher's epic battles, Wren's too, and their quote-unquote wolves. Fisher tries to say that he's not that person anymore, and he rushes outside. Ceres realizes that to the whole tavern, Fisher and Wren are legends.
Yeah, they are.
Nice. Let's dive right in then to Chapter 9, Righteous Purpose.
Yes, kicking it off this week. This is kind of a super random note to start on, but Ceres was lamenting over her short legs and how she has to nearly break into a jog to keep up with all of the Fae and their super long legs. And while I am 5'4", which I wouldn't consider like super short, I feel this way all the time. And I was just telling John how I feel like the general population of the world has gotten taller recently because I just, even when I was working in a high school, if I like walked in the halls when it was really busy or like in the cafeteria at lunchtime, I'm shorter than everyone. And I don't know why it's like that, but I feel like this all the time. I'm like constantly jogging to keep up with people. So I just appreciated that. I feel seen.
My first note for this whole chapter section was where Kingfisher, I believe, says, "All right, O'Sheelith, Lane isn't going to let this go until you've been given the cliff notes. So listen close." And I just wrote, "I'm sorry, the cliff notes? You mean the popular series of student study guides established on Earth in like the 1950s? Those cliff notes? Why is this a term here? Why are we talking like this?"
I had read this part while Kyle was at work, and he came home and he was like, "Have you read any?" And I was like, "Yeah, Cliff Notes." Like, that was the first thing I said. We both just went off about
Nice.
it.
I felt so validated that it wasn't just me this time. I was like, yes, Cliff Notes. You did it.
I feel seen.
It's like a really random thing to throw in there. But
I have another note later too where I was like, oh, Kyle, he's got to be ranting about this.
I had to check and be like, was that what you were hoping the rant was? She's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. I was kind of chuckling at Kingfisher flipping off all the statues of the gods as they walked by because I just, hope that doesn't haunt him later. I just feel like they're all making such a big deal about how they treat the statues. That's been making me laugh. The Lane was just like shocked. Like she was just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Shocked.
appalled.
Shocked, I guess.
Aghast.
Appalled. Flabbergasted.
Beside herself.
Scandalized.
She went through
She
a
was a
lot
lot
of
of things,
emotions.
apparently, yes. Anyway, this next part, John sort of mentioned in the chapter recap, but Kingfisher was talking about their Fae canines and says, "We use them to drink your kind dry." And I said, I'm sorry, is this a Fae vampire situation?
I'm freaking out about it. I've never seen one of your guys' notes and almost just erased your note to put my own note here because the amount of freak out that I had over this moment. And you wrote the note first. And I was like, okay, it's fine. We can talk about it in the episode. I'll be okay. But I was freaking out.
I was thinking of you when I wrote the note because I knew that you would be freaking out about it. The second part of this note, though, was where he says, we might not need blood to maintain our immortality anymore, and then goes on to say something else. But I was like, is that maybe what Madra's doing? Like, maybe she's not Fae, but she's somehow using like human blood or Fae blood or something to maintain immortality. I don't know. But later in the chapter, he also says everything is about blood human. So I don't know.
The only thing I would say against that for Madra is, like, in how he describes it, is because they were Fae. They had to drink the human blood. And so that's what kept them immortal.
Uh-huh.
So she would already have to be Fae in order for that to work. But I guess I see what you're saying. Like, maybe it's Fae blood or something else. Just some sort of blood magic-y some.
Yeah. If they have blood oaths, maybe there's some other kind of like blood magic happening or something. I don't know.
My note I just put was, insert Lauren freak out here. I was so excited. I was reading on the couch. We had just put the girls to bed, and Kyle was like getting his drink and snacks or whatever to go play video games in the office. And he was like, I was sitting there smiling at my phone. And he's like, what did you just read? And I just like, I don't even know what happened. I just looked up with the most like blushy, like, I was like giggling. I was like, are they actually vampires? And he just goes, I wish I was recording this reaction right now. Oh my God, Kyle, is it really happening? I was really excited. I don't know that it is. But at least they have their teeth still, which I think is super hot. And he says, but by the gods, do we still have the teeth for it? Our dirty little secret. And I was like, okay. Stop right now.
Stop,
but don't
Kingfisher.
stop. But don't stop.
As she continues to turn red.
I just love it, guys. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I need to get us to read a vampire book in this podcast,
Yeah.
so that you guys can all love it as much as I do. I'll figure out which one. Let you know.
Nosferatu.
Great.
Blade.
I love that this is not the first time you've mentioned Nosferatu recently on the podcast.
Oh, he's going to keep coming up. If I know Nosferatu.
Anytime we need a suggestion for anything.
Anything vampire related is the first one.
It's Edward.
Oh my God.
Get it right.
At this point, I'm just here to say that Lauren and I called it, because Kingfisher and Everlane, our siblings, felt super obvious, but I'm going to take our wins wherever we can get them in this book. So
That's right. Call them out.
thank you.
That was a crowd cheering.
Thank you,
Wow.
Kyle. I thought you were just like breathing really heavy. My next note here is where he kind of like gives her little nickname. He's already been calling her O'Shaleth and Osha for short, but we kind of like understand what it is. With it being a little butterfly, they hatch, live, and die all in one day. The cold kills them very fast, which does kind of fit for a human who's never seen snow before coming to the Winter Palace. So good
That's
nickname. Good job.
Yeah.
It's also on the book. I was like, oh, and I sat there and stared
Cute.
at the little butterfly for a while to make sure it was. I got it. I'm just taking in any detail I can to figure this whole thing out. And then we find out that like a little bit of Kingfisher's magic, and he just says, because I am magic. And I just wrote, Kingfisher equals Andarna. They're both magic. We don't know any of what that means,
Same
but
thing.
that's what they are. So
They both have teeth.
Yep. Yeah, they do. They both can kind of go invisible and like appear somewhere else, kind of.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Kingfisher's is like actual, like whatever
Right.
they're going to call it. in this book.
Rematerializing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Ceres's POV, she thinks the quickest way out of this nightmare was through Kingfisher. And I wrote, or on Kingfisher, am I right? Which turned out to be literal in this chapter section. So that was funnier when I went back to write these notes. I also laughed out loud, really at like all of their conversations, but Sarah's telling Kingfisher his personality is trash made me cackle a little bit. And then Ceres clenched her jaw. So cheers, everybody.
The first
Drinkies.
chapter tonight. Wow.
I had Kingfisher sort of talking about being magic and having magic and her asking him to use his magic to help clean up. He responded saying, Fey magic isn't some kind of cheap conjuring trick, human. Our abilities are sacred gifts to be used discerningly for righteous purposes. And it just reminded me of Gandalf saying, do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks. And then, much like Gandalf, immediately following it up by finding out he's perfectly fine doing cheap tricks with his magic.
Amazing.
This is one of those, I have a couple of these that Ceres says things that I feel like she's not supposed to know this information, just like as her character. But she asks, if there's a winter palace, then there are other royal residents too. Yes. An autumn palace, spring, summer. And I was like, how does she know that these other seasons exist when she lives in a world that only is summer with 2 suns. She has never seen other seasons or knows of that.
That's a good question. Well, did she know about snow?
She's never
Didn't
seen
know
it.
about
Did she
night.
not know what
She's
it was?
never seen it,
I
remember?
thought she knew what it was, but she had never seen it before.
Maybe just in stories or like general information from.
Yeah.
General information.
General information. Kyle doesn't know what that is. He's never seen How I
Sorry.
Met Your Mother.
And I never
He's
will.
probably like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Anyways, I have another one of these two that I feel like she says some information. I'm like, how do you know that? But we'll get there when we get there.
She read it in the Cliff Notes.
She must have. That's exactly where it is. That's what she's been studying in the library, the script to this book. And it's one of those. Later, she pulls
Yeah.
out the script, breaking the fourth wall moments. Okay, so in this also little conversation, we learn that Heron's dagger back in the last chapter section, like when it turned into Quicksilver, that it was like that he was having conversations with, like the Quicksilver.
Oh.
And we were trying to speculate, like, if Madra was, like, mind controlling him and talking to him or something. So I'm pretty sure it's telling me here that it was the Quicksilver. But also, I kind of like the idea of Madra mind controlling him in that whole moment. So I don't really know. But I
want
took
to go back and read that again.
this part right here.
Yeah. Like the original conversation of like Heron with the.
I just remember him
interesting.
talking about, like, obsidian hallways and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really remember much else, like, in specific detail of that conversation. I know what you're saying, though. Now I want to go back and reread that, too. So we'll do that before our next episode. And then we also learn here that the little bit of Quicksilver is still left inside of Kingfisher. And it said that they marked his jade irises and that it's like usually inside him. And so it's always inside, always there, always whispering in his ears, pushing him toward madness. And that's why he uses a little pendant thingy. And so my theory here is that she's going to like take it out, kind of like the cover of the book where it looks like he's crying his little silver tear. And so maybe she like is able to pull it out somehow.
Interesting.
I don't know. And then like save him from his madness or whatever. That's my theory.
Huh. That's kind of cool.
All right, my next note, very simple.
That means
here.
I'm onto something because he just ignored it.
Got him.
I just cry silver like how unicorns bleed silver, so it's normal for him.
Oh.
Sure.
It does sound like he's literally been absorbed by it like several times. So
Yeah, that's true.
just saying, not everything is a sign, okay?
Or is it?
Or is it? No.
Well, you're shutting it down. Makes me think that it is.
Okay, my next note. This is when they're having a conversation and he like says something like, if you say something else, blah, 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 and it like makes her be quiet. And he says, clever girl. And it made me think of the moment in Jurassic Park. So I have the gif here of the one guy when the velociraptor like comes around and flanks him and he says, clever girl.
And then he dies.
And
So
then he
that's
died.
foreshadowing.
And then he, you know,
Womp womp.
he gets velociraptored
Yes, he does.
all up in that. And then with his sleeves rolled up to his elbows. And I just wrote, forearms.
Gotta love some forearms.
Oh,
lovely.
surprised.
And that's
I was the only
forearm
one with
shadowing.
the-
Wow.
Oh, I like what you did there. Wow.
Forearms.
Which
The other
takes
day,
us on.
Kyle was in the kitchen and I just came up randomly and kissed him. And he goes, "Is it because my sleeves are rolled up?" Because you're my husband. But okay.
It was specifically because she grabbed my wrist and like went up the arms to the elbows. I was like, okay.
Oh.
No.
To be fair though, today she came up and like placed her hand on my chest. And she was like, I stopped her from doing it at first. And she's like, I just wanted to do like a friendly little chest touch. And I was like, okay, well, if that's a friendly touch to you, I feel like maybe you need to like redefine your boundaries with friends. Cause
I wasn't trying to lead anywhere. I was just wanting to like laugh like that.
I just wanted to grab them. Let me have them.
You just grab him.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I love my husband, everyone.
Oh, wow.
All right. Oh, okay. Well, that takes us into chapter 10, Crumbs. I have the first notes here when Ceres and Lane are, you know, they're having the breakfast or whatever, and they go arm in arm in Ceres's point of view. And she says, and that, it seemed, was how long it took Everlane Debarra to forgive a slight. And I just went, Everlane? I put a little smiley emoji in there. They're already best friends. I'm living for the friendship.
It is cute.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Right? In that same scene, too, she sort of describes what they're eating for breakfast, and she says everyone brought a breakfast of fresh fruits and yogurt, foreign delicacies I'd never tasted before. And I just wrote, same girl, I've been having the same flavor toaster strudel every day in the car on the way to work. I could be doing better with like minimal prep time and care for myself. Yogurt and fruit is so easy to do. I've not done it in years.
That's so valid.
The finer things, you know.
We're too poor to pay for fruit. Fruit's
I mean, it
expensive.
is a strawberries and cream toaster strudel. So, like, if you're going to choose a toaster strudel.
Best of both worlds.
That's fruit, Kyle.
But yeah,
right there.
I'm pretty sure it says real fruit flavor right on the box.
In one convenient packet. Oh my gosh. Okay, we got a little gods watch here. Sarah says, where did your gods actually go? And Everlane says, they set off on pilgrimage thousands of another time. It's like, I like to think this is why this chapter is called Crumbs, because that's all I'm getting from these gods watch moments.
That's amazing. I was frustrated by that and highlighted it and thought, oh, Con's going to be so mad.
I was mad. Dang it, Everlane. Focus.
When they get back and the Kingfisher is sitting there eating, Lane says, and you wonder why Bellicon calls you a dog. And Fisher goes, I don't wonder. I know why he calls me that. It's because I bite. And I just screamed and I put the gifs of the people going, like freaking out.
And sometimes I poo on the carpet.
Okay. Okay. Kyle, stop.
He hates it.
Kyle. What the heck? Don't ruin it. John has lost it. We've lost John.
Oh, that was good. Oh my god.
Dang it.
Wow.
I bark at all of our guests.
Every time the doorbell rings.
Every time somebody goes by a door, he's like,
I chew up his slippers all the time. He gets so pissed.
Oh no. Okay, now I can't see. Sorry. All right. And then, eventually, the tension in Everlane's ticking jaw muscle eased. Cheers, everybody.
Cheersies.
Thanks, Everlane.
She does that a lot. Usually it's like the big hulking males that do
know.
it when something happens. But Everlane's jaws must just be
Very defined.
yes.
This is Saris's point of view when I think this is when Lane and Kingfisher are kind of arguing, going back and forth. She says, I stood on the peripherals of this group, which gave me an excellent view of the dynamics between them all. There was so much hurt between them, so much time and history, and so many secrets. From the outside looking in, it was impossible to unravel all of the threads that connected them. I was just like, living for it. Give me the drama. Call me a drama llama. I love it. And then this is after Fisher storms out with his food. Saris asks if Lane is okay. She's like, visibly, clearly not. And Lane is like, no, I'm fine. Fine. Really, I'm fine. And I wrote, narrator, she was in fact not fine.
I still relate to that moment though.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's fine. Mhm. Okay, so while they're at the library studying, we learn that there are 3 branches of alchemists. The first was Fae who sought to discover a path to immortality. The second is Fae who sought to create and invent by transmuting various metals and ores, which I think is what Saris is. And lastly, Faes who sought to cure illnesses and disease. And so I was wondering if maybe that's what Mishra is, if she's a Fae, something about a path to immortality, or maybe she studied that somehow, or she knows someone who can do that and is doing it to her, because I have a theory that it's not her but someone else that we'll get to later. So I don't know, but maybe
It may
she's
also, like, I don't know if it helps or hurts, but these are pretty truly the 3 branches of actual alchemy back when it was like the first pseudoscience. It was like not quite magic, not quite science.
like real life.
Yeah, people seeking immortality, people trying to make anything into gold, cure illnesses or whatever. You know, you've seen Full Metal Alchemist. It's kind of like that.
Sure.
But yeah, that was like, it was one of the first sciences, quote unquote, to come in. Those were like the 3 main purviews of study.
Okay.
Trivia Kyle. This might just be a random bit of world building, but I'm curious to know why in Saris's POV she was thinking if Hayden was gone, he needed to be buried and I needed to stand the customary 72-hour vigil over his grave. And there's no explanation of that. She just kind of moves on. I was curious about it.
Well, and everybody's
That's
like,
really
oh,
it.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, sure. 72
say
hours.
anything.
Yeah, you totally need to do that. So I don't know. I don't know if that qualifies as a God's watch. I just thought that was interesting.
It might be just because they have the two suns. Their days are so long. Maybe that is 72 hours, like
It's
from
just a
dawn to
day.
dusk or whatever. I don't know.
From dawn to dawn.
Dawn to dawn, yeah. I don't know.
They haven't mentioned any like God and Zilvarin, right? Because it
Well, I mean,
almost
the
seems like
sun
they have
gods.
believers, but that's for
No, they just
Madra.
have the sons named something.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was.
She
I
just
thought it
calls
was
them like
different.
she just calls them the long forgotten gods in Zilvarin.
That's right. Yeah.
And the sons have names.
Yes.
But
That
they're
are
I
not-
don't know, you
similar
guys have
to.
read the book. I
But
don't
like
know.
the people of Zilvarin, they just like we've come to learn that the sons are Baal and Mithin or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
They're like
something.
similar
But-
to the names of
But
the gods.
do
but
the
they don't
people of
worship-
Zilvarin know that?
I don't think so.
No,
Because
right?
that was like a revelation for her.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, I guess. Okay.
But they are a superstitious people, so that would lead me to believe that they have some sort of
I would think so.
belief in
Yeah.
gods, like the guy who's like superstitious about the plague or whatever. She
Well-
would not stand over a grave for 72 hours if it did not have some sort of superstitious
Right.
meaning to it.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
that was kind of my question because like that whole thing with the plague bag, that's believers that are like worshiping Madra, and not necessarily
She's the
a
god.
quote unquote
Yes.
god kind of thing.
But I kind of thought it earlier on one of Connor's notes about the gods here going on a pilgrimage, and I was like, kind of odd to think of gods that would need to do that, or that you could have a
Yeah.
god that
Right.
where it's like, oh, he's gone for a pilgrimage for a while, so like I get nothing, no communication for a while.
Yeah.
Most other pantheons would be like, no, they are omniscient, but these ones are for some reason people are like, yeah, they just left. I don't know, like
They're
higher
stuck
up
in like
people who.
Quicksilver somewhere.
Yeah. Real quiet.
Love it. Love it. Okay.
Truly don't know.
yeah,
It's fun being in this seat. I hate it and I equally love it because I hate not being able to read every week. I hate having to stop and whatever. But
Yeah.
it's also fun, like trying to figure it all out, and especially with people who already know it. It's just, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's fun. Anyways. Okay, this is one of the things I had a question about, and I'm really glad that they answered it. But Saris herself was like, wait, how can I read this book right now? And Everlyn kind of explains that
Oh, yeah.
everyone is speaking Common Fae, and the book is written in Common Fae. In Zilvarin, they had Madra, and your queen has always spoken Common Fae. She served as an anchor to our language. Perhaps in other realms, languages and alphabets have changed as well. So that also makes me think Madra came from this world, or at least how knew the language in order to be appointed the anchor between their world and Zilvarin or whatever at some point.
that's actually really interesting. Like, obviously, like I'd forgotten that this conversation happened with Lane, but now it's striking me that it's really interesting that she confirmed that Madra is human. But to
Yeah.
your point,
Yeah.
it's like, well, hold on a second. If her common or if her language was Common Fae, then like how is she human? That literally makes no sense.
Yeah, I totally.
Well, they said there used to be humans, like where the Fae are, right?
yeah, that's
Oh
true.
yeah. But that
But-
seemed to be like a really long time ago,
Like
like
forever.
millennia.
Yeah.
But
As
he's
he
a
was
millennia
talking about.
old, so it has to be
yeah,
more
yeah.
than a millennia.
Do we know how old Madra is? For some reason, I keep thinking she's like 1,000, but we don't know that.
I
was
feel like
actually
it would have to
thinking
be
that.
up there because I feel like
Yeah.
if she was like 110, it wouldn't be as impressive, and people wouldn't be like the immortal queen. It would just be like, oh, she's
Yeah.
lived a little longer than normal, but
I vaguely recall Saris mentioning maybe that she was around 1,000 years old or had been around
That's what
for
I thought.
1,000.
yeah.
But I don't think she has a specific number.
No, I don't think so
Right.
either.
That would mean she'd be younger than Kingfisher and Everlane, though.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
she
yeah.
was around 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Everlane could be considered.
They would
around
still know her.
1,000 at
Yeah.
1,300 something.
Yeah,
Right.
it
Just
depends,
depends
on
on how around.
lenient you are.
How around is she?
What's another couple hundred years at that point? You know.
I don't know. I'm just really trying to figure out anything to do with Madra or whatever. I'm just, there's something going on. I don't know. Oh, and then when I had just said that about maybe the gods got lost in the Quicksilver, they kind of explained that in this conversation, how like some people while they were on adventures or other things, like just got trapped in these whole other worlds because of the Quicksilver. We kind of learned that about Kingfisher's dad, ? That went to Zilvarin and then never came back. And I don't know, all of those things. So I have theories. I got some theories cooking and I'm going to get to them. But obviously I'm also in, what is this, chapter 10, so it's not like anything solidified, but some initial thoughts. We'll get there. And then we also learned that as far as they know, when one pool of Quicksilver is activated, all Quicksilver everywhere is activated. So we've seen it activated twice now. So potentially things are happening in other places and behind the scenes that we don't know about. That's going to end up having some big implications later. Yeah. And then 3 times in this, or 4 times, I guess, because she opens it so Kingfisher can go and come back. Things are happening.
What I find really interesting about this is that the one in Zilvarin, obviously Madra has it incredibly heavily guarded, but then obviously we see the one here in the Winter Palace. I think there were maybe a couple guards guarding the door. So I'm curious if we get to see some other pathways, if they're how guarded they are, because the one in the Winter Palace seemed to be pretty lax, and it's the biggest one apparently that they know of.
Maybe they were hoping people would get lost in all the tunnels and stuff, and then they'd have time to figure it out. Oh, they're 20 floors down. They still don't know to take a left or a right.
It is literally stories down. So,
well, okay, so that's my question about this whole thing with Heron and whether or not the Quicksilver was making him mad, or if he was talking to Madra, because does the Quicksilver speak to everyone the way that it does to Ceres?
I think it does.
I thought that was just...
I think it is to Kingfisher because it touched him, and it's with him still. And so
I thought for her Heron. It was just because she was an alchemist.
Well, yeah, but it touched Heron. So
when I was first reading it, I kind of was wondering if it wasn't a reference to how actual Quicksilver works, because if you are not careful in handling it, it does cause madness.
Oh.
When hat makers used mercury to make hats, it was lining the hat and they'd wear it all the time, and then it would seep into their brain and cause madness. That's why the Mad Hatter is the way he is in Alice in Wonderland, is based off of that, whatever. So I didn't know if it was just referencing that, it's Quicksilver, yes, it's magic, and maybe also referencing real life Quicksilver or mercury. If you don't know how to handle it or you're handling it improperly, it causes that same sort of magical madness or whatever.
Sure. Okay.
I assumed that obviously Kingfisher seems to be able to communicate because it's in his eyeball. But I figured maybe you can communicate if it touches you, at least, and then, or you can at least hear it if it touches you. But then in Ceres's case, I assume because she's an alchemist, she can communicate with it without any restrictions, really.
Right.
Yeah, because in this section, it was beckoning to her. That's how she found it. That's
and she can hear, listen for it far away, or she can hear it far away and sense it and stuff.
Yeah, I did look up that section though with Heron, and there's a part. I don't know what all of the dialogue is there, but there's a part that I had highlighted where it says, "Die," Heron bellowed. "I will not take your lies and your serpent tongue. Choke on it. Die." And that just feels more like he's talking to a specific person to me than the Quicksilver, because I don't know why he would say that. But I guess if he was mad, technically...
I did assume that he was talking to the Quicksilver.
Yeah, because even the Quicksilver to Ceres is step in, come in, it's fine. The water's warm and welcome, let's do this, and whatever.
Sure.
And she is okay, sure, whatever, I have this ring. And then, but Heron would know...
Yeah.
Probably some more about it, obviously, since he knew not to take the sword and whatever. So maybe he was
just interesting language. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that is it. Obsidian broken everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Down in the ground, in the passageways, in the walls. They move in the ground. I can't. It won't die. It has to. Okay, so maybe that is. Maybe it is.
Down in the passageways makes me think of this part in the Winter Palace.
Or the other one mentioned that it was in a cave somewhere or something.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Oh, my only other thought on this, real quick, before we move on, is that it's saying when one pool of Quicksilver is activated, all Quicksilvers everywhere is activated. Does that include Lauren, you stop?
You held
Lauren,
it up
you
there
were
for
saying-
so long. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Lauren, you were saying that in this section it happened like 4 times or something. So does that include like when she has the little bead of Quicksilver in her hand and she
That's
like
what I did.
liquefies it? Does that mean like all Quicksilver everywhere is activated? Or
I
does
would
that
think
not count
so.
as what counts as a pool of Quicksilver,
It just says every
I don't
time
know.
it's activated. Does it say a pool specifically?
It says when
A
one
regulation
as
pool
far
has
as
got to
we
be
know.
6 feet deep. You
An
got to take the
Olympic sized
measurements.
pool.
You have to have at least one ladder to
Right.
get in and out, and a stairwell, maybe a shallow end.
Does that mean that Kingfisher is crying his little silver unicorn tears every time she does that?
So
Does it not liquefy in his eyeball?
It does seem like a huge oversight in that magic arena for them
Yeah.
to be like, to learn that happens. Like, yeah, they're all open when we open one, and they're like, and we're fine with that. We're not going to try to improve that at all.
I assume that it needs to be at least a certain amount.
Yeah,
So
substantial.
like a small handful. If you're not able to walk in it, then it's probably not a pathway. That would be my
Like a
assumption.
puddle. A puddle
At
is
least. I mean,
What is this, a pathway for ants?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I did count that.
Could they
though.
travel through it?
it's like you can stick your pinky through and we're like what is that?
Hello.
Hello.
I'll see you soon.
Okay.
my
On to my
God.
very unserious note. My boy Kingfisher, we learned,
My
has been
boy.
alive. My boy. He's been alive for 1,733 years. But like, and he corrects them. Like when he walks into the room, because Everlane said he was like, 1,730. And he's like, actually, I'm 1,733. And I was like, how/why would you even keep track at that point? I forget my age all the time and I am actually only 30. I don't.
Yeah, I heavily relate to that. Like, stopped counting after 25. When people ask me how old I am, my brain has to reset for a second. I'm like, how old are you? I'm like, hold on, I forgot I was a person.
God, I was a
Great question.
person.
How old am
I forgot I had statistics.
I? One. Yeah.
But Lauren's been there for me. She has seen me go brain dead when people ask, like, how old are you? And I'm like, look at her and she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay, great.
Maybe they just have nothing else to do but think about specific details like that.
Maybe.
They've just done everything, so they just think about every tiny little thing. I don't know.
They also don't have like 2 toddlers running around because it's like so rare for the Fae to have children. And half the time I feel like I forget because if someone asks me what my birthday is, my go-to is to spout off one of my kids' birthdays. And then I'm like, wait.
One of my
I was
kids'
not born in
birthdays is
2022.
2 days for my birthday. So I always say her birthday instead of mine because we're 2 days apart.
I have also done that for your birthday, picking up your prescriptions. I'll say her birthday instead. They're like, that's not right. I'm like,
When was she
I
born?
swear I know it.
give me the medicine. My next note was Kingfisher saying to Ceres, next time you're curious about me, feel free to ask me, saying that she should have just asked him how old he was. And she says, if I had asked you something, you wouldn't have answered me. And if you had, it wouldn't have been the truth. And he said, incorrect. If you had asked me something worthy of a reply, I'd answer. And if I had answered, then it would be the truth. And I just wrote, oh, brother, I'm getting asked the right questions. PTSD. Can't do it again.
Yup. That was funny.
In Kingfisher's defense, he is a super old fae male and has talked about multiple times how humans are like, here so fleeting, such like a small moment of his like existence and whatever.
Yeah.
And the other couple that you're referencing was in a committed relationship for several months at that point and should have been
Very true.
communicating. So
See, that doesn't really like change what he's saying, though. He said the exact same thing. It is still like, ask me the right questions, I'll give you the right. And I
but
get
I
totally
feel
different
like-
situations. Still the same response, though.
I guess, but like I don't feel like it hits the same for me just because he has no obligation to her whatsoever.
Yeah, because he has
There's
fangs and
nothing
he's
in
hot.
him that is supposed to.
True. Yeah, so true.
Oh, I missed whatever you just said.
I just said because he has fangs and he's hot.
Well, yeah, but also,
I mean,
just kidding. But for
but also,
real,
yeah.
It's
I
just the
think that is
conversation
fine.
itself, even. I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
whatever.
I get it. I was cracking up at Kingfisher's scent description because we always talk about these and like needing a candle and whatever. But this one was wood and leather and spices and something green
Hey.
and faint musk. I was like, something green? Like, I don't
He's
know
been
what.
puffing.
Just
He's been
something.
smoking.
And faint
Gotta
musk.
do something for 1,700 years.
Keeps his complexion.
That never once crossed my mind. I was thinking of like the woods and like leaves. Oh, that's the same thing. And like grass. Oh, that's the same thing.
Oh.
And, okay, let's move on.
How many green things can you name?
My next note, also very unserious, but also serious. Kingfisher's retort after Sarah says, fuck you, led to my note. Oh, he's a dirty talker, isn't he? All caps. Very excited
wait.
about this.
Well, what you missed here, though, was that whenever he was like holding her down right before she said F you, it says her jaw was screaming as she clenched her teeth so hard. So,
Oh.
drinkies right here. You missed one. Look
Also,
at you.
we didn't even talk about this chin grab. Grabbed me firmly by the chin, forcing me to be still. Hello.
Big fan of that.
Ooh. Okay. My last note for chapter 10 is just that I am loving the audiobook for this. Specifically when the Quicksilver speaks to Saris, the overlapping voices in the audiobook gave me chills. I was not expecting that. I had like I usually am listening to the audiobook while I have the ebook pulled up on my phone. And I had set my phone down to like walk across the room and do something. And as soon as I heard that, I like whipped my head back around and like went and picked up my phone to see what it looked like. It was so cool.
The audiobook is top tier. Very good.
So good.
Okay, so we've talked about this in multiple books, specifically me and Connor, and I guess a little bit in our Throne of Glass podcast as well. But whenever there are fae involved, there are typically mates involved. And mates. But you can usually tell who's going to be mates when one punches the other in the face. And in this moment, Saris punches Kingfisher square in the mouth, and my immediate note was, they're mates. So mates.
Sold.
That's it. It's signed. It's written in the book. That is all.
Wedding bells are ringing.
That is all the confirmation
Around
I
his
need.
head.
Yeah, as he like passes out.
She did hit him pretty hard.
I know. I was so surprised that it affected him at all.
Yeah.
That was shocking to me. But anyways, they're totally mates.
Totally. Totally. My first note on chapter 11, which is called Swallow, heyo, Sarah's POV on her silky, shimmering red dress. It says, it was the kind of dress that would bring most men to their knees. I fucking hated it. I wrote, oh no, I can't believe they're forcing me to look super hot around all these super hot fae males.
Not again.
Not again.
You sounded like
find
what's her
out?
name?
What?
I said you sounded like what's her name? I want a hot dog real bad.
Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah.
Oh, you look like the 4th of July.
Not in front of all
What is
these
he
hot
doing?
fails.
Not in front of all these hot fey males. Hey, what are you doing? What is she doing?
That's not what I was going for.
Go
but
on.
I'll take it, I guess. When we find out, though, that Sarah split Kingfisher's lip, I was dying laughing. I thought it was so funny, and especially how grumpy he was about the whole thing.
I was just so surprised that, first of all, she could make him bleed, like that she could cut him by just like a human punching a fae. Like that is not normally how that goes from my book reading experiences. But then like even in the next chapter, it's still all swollen and gross and stuff. Like it doesn't just go away. I think he says he kept it that way for like whatever, like he probably could have taken it away. But still, just the fact that she could like make him bleed at all was honestly impressive, I guess, but also shocking. So, and then we get like this super interesting backstory on Kingfisher's dad being accused of being the one that stops the Quicksilver when he went on a mission to Zilvarin and then never returned. So from this information, Kingfisher's dad is still in Zilvarin as far as we know, and that's when the Quicksilver stopped. Maybe my theory is here that he's the fae keeping Madra alive and using Madra as like his face in front of his secret, like he's secretly running the show, and Madra is like his human, like, I don't know.
Or he is Madra.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. No. But like, does that make Kingfisher's dad the big bad if he's letting all of Zilvarin be treated so bad? You know, like, I don't know. But I feel like he's still there. Or, and I don't want this theory to be true, he's somehow also related to Saris, and that's how she has some sort of like alchemist
Yikes.
powers
Gross.
or something. I know, I'm so aware.
Like a
That's why I
Star
said no.
Wars situation.
But like, if there's other fae there, maybe it's not him, but maybe there's some other faes that were stuck in Zilvarin, And so that is something in that world. And somehow that blood is in her that she can, like, as it all comes down to blood or whatever. And she'll end up having some sort of fey blood of some sort. And that's how she can do alchemy, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then Lane's jaw worked. So another cheers. Thanks, Lane.
She's working overtime this episode.
The ladies are holding down the clinkies.
Yep. My next note here is in the middle of our little info dump on the existing Quicksilver pools. You know I had to bring this up. It says the Lycians, the seafaring fae who lived upon a southern island, had their pool located deep in a sea cave. And if we get a sea adventure in this series too, I will be so hyped.
I just wrote under that, someone get this woman a pirate book. She's been begging for it for the past, I don't know how long.
I have one that I can send you.
Okay.
It's a Katie Robert. Did you ever read her mermaid book?
Oh, no.
Yeah, she has a mermaid book. It's like a little series.
Okay.
A Hunt on Dark Waters. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nice title.
Okay.
I like that.
It's like
Smutty.
Well, yeah, because it's Katie Robert. But also
Katie
it's
Robert.
it's like
Let's just say
There's
things
like
get a little
a-
wet on that ship.
Whoa! All right.
Sounds like a
Soak
plug.
the deck, am I right?
talk about it later. Oh my god.
We're going to need some extra hands on this deck.
Whoa! Whoa!
Talking about this long day.
Learn today.
Reel it back in.
Learn what a long deck is today. All right.
Like, like if a pirate's book was narrated by Paul Rudd.
Oh, speaking of long decks, my next note, this is when Fisher says they're talking about his split lip that Saris gave him. And he says, I'm a fan of aggressive foreplay. It'll be a fun reminder, because he's talking about keeping it and not getting it healed. He says that, and it says, Saris breathed in sharply, inhaling cheese, choking and sputtering. I tried desperately to get rid of it, but it wasn't going anywhere. And I wrote, and then he tells her to swallow. And I wrote, he tells her to swallow. This is the name of the chapter, LOL. Hilarious, dude. Oh,
Inhaling cheese.
she was inhaling cheese. And then Lane comes in and she's like, what in the five hells? Fisher, what did you do with her? She's like, just breathe, Saris. Breathe in and out. Choking on some cheese.
I just
What a way to
started
go.
dying when Everlane was like, why does it smell like a brothel in here?
Yes.
And
oh
he
my
just
gosh.
like looks at her. So good.
Well, in chapter 12, Fox, my very first note was, after being frustrated at being called human or Osha, Saris requests to be called by name. She says, it's Saris, my name. Call me that or nothing at all. And Kingfisher replies, nothing at all. I like the sound of that. Come here and look at this, nothing at all. And I was like, dad joke. Nice. Honestly, with how many like Faye jokes and deals come down to like puns or super literal meanings, I bet a human dad would do pretty well in the Faye, and I'd love to read a book about just some like 45-year-old dad getting lost in the Faye, but he just completely kills it there because he's like so
Oh
used
my
to just
God.
turning words into phrase. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
pretty
you
good.
might
You
Good.
should
love
write that.
You might love the Crescent City bonus chapters.
Oh, okay.
If you ever get around to reading the rest of the Massverse, there's a
Well,
there's a
I'm-
character in Crescent City I think you would love.
I'm supposed to read at least Akatar, the first book in the series, because that was the deal I paid so that we would read
In
Fearless
Patreon.
in the book
Yeah.
club. So
Oh, I thought that deal was for you reading the whole series.
I only said
said
Akatar, and I
Akatar.
also only said that I might. So
Wow.
Okay, Faye Kyle.
Yeah, he definitely pulled a
Kyle.
Kingfisher on them.
Yeah. You twisting words.
yeah, they got mad about it. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll do the first one. At
The
least-
first one's
at
arguably
least.
the worst one. So
Well,
if you're gonna do it, I mean, what? Am I wrong?
that was such a quick debate.
You're gonna
Oh,
look at me and tell me
well,
that I'm
yeah.
wrong?
No, okay. So when I think back to actually reading the first book, I just remember loving the series.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
then
do
when I
too.
think about the whole series, I'm like, oh yeah, the first book. You know what I mean? Like that's
It's not
where that.
bad. It's just
Yeah,
the worst.
that's why I was
of the
like,
five,
oh,
I think.
I love that book, and then I was like, oh well. When I'm thinking about the rest of them, yeah, I get it.
I feel like that's probably true for a lot of series. Like you love the
Yeah,
series,
yeah.
and then you reread the first book, and you're like, oh yeah, nothing happened. why would I read this book again?
I forgot about that though. So
when Elizabeth Evans recordings. come.
That's what I thought. I was gonna listen to her new takes.
recordings.
Okay, Kingfisher in this chapter says, "Are your kind supposed to take naps in the afternoons? You're really grumpy." And my note said, "Yes." That's really the whole note.
It's so
Yes,
true.
we are. Yes, I am grumpy. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Saris works her jaw.
Oh, work it,
So,
girl.
Work those glasses, everybody. Cheers. I should say tumblers. We're all drinking out of tumblers.
That's true. Then it says, he became a blur of black smoke. Cold wind ripped at my hair, and then he was gone. He rematerialized. Stop. I was going to get it the second time, and you made me laugh. Okay. He rematerialized on the other side of the workshop, murder in his eyes, that lethal black sword gripped in both hands, dripping smoke. And I just wrote, hot. Super hot.
I'm looking up this section right now because I think I literally had the exact same note. Oh, I put hot and interesting.
Oh, nice. She's intrigued. I think this is when the fox
Amazing.
is making noise and he
Oh,
just
yeah.
jumps into action.
This reminded me of the scene in Tangled where Rapunzel's freaking out and then Flynn is
little bunny.
like, it's a little bunny. Yeah, and he's like, relax. It could probably smell fear.
It's exactly that moment.
I was dying though when Kingfisher was like talking about the fox, like very similar moment. And he says, it's going to bite you because Saris is like approaching it. And she goes, no, it won't. It bit me.
For me, it was the let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. And it's spelled Leggo in the book. It made me laugh so hard. So good.
I was also just cackling at this. Again, all of their banter is so good. But when when Sarah says, do you have any idea what those boots cost me? And Kingfisher says, let me guess, pure virginity. And she says, fuck you, Fisher. And he goes, sure, but I'm afraid I don't have any new boots to trade you for your time.
It's pretty quick. That's good.
Got her.
Yeah.
That's so
it's
good.
Oh, and then she's still wearing her like one of those puffy dresses that Lane has got her into. And Fisher magics different clothes onto Saris. And it's like kind of just talking about what she's wearing. And it says the material was tough but supple, skin tight. And I was like, hello. But it continues. The shirt was more of a tunic, a little longer in the body than I was used to. And I was like, but like super convenient that you could just literally just like new clothes,
Change your
new
outfit.
That
outfit.
is
Yeah.
nice.
He gave her
So
like a
nice.
sword or like a dagger and a sword and all this
A
stuff.
little
So
belt for all her tools.
all about
Yeah.
So
Cute.
When I
pretty convenient.
read this too, like with how, maybe it's just how I've read it in other books, but like how his shadows have cleaned up the place and gotten supplies or whatever. Whenever he made these clothes for her that were skin tight, I was like, okay, so he like knows every inch of her body then. Like, because that was his magic that just whoop, like
Yeah,
knows
he does.
all the measurements and everything now. But
Connor!
it's just
Your
like
face
the
when you did that.
evil.
You're like, your whole face.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Excellent.
Everything's going according to plan. So funny. So in this moment, Kingfisher takes off his shirt, whoo-hoo, and
Ew.
Saris obviously looks
Obviously.
all over. And she says
How
at the
could
very
she not?
center of his chest is a snarling and fierce, another wolf's head had been inked on his skin. And my note here was this whole vampire wolf shadow male this person is my dream come true.
Is this
Literal
when
dream come
when you
true.
texted me while you were? Was this the line when you texted me?
I think I don't remember when it was specifically. I know it was probably whenever they were making out. I don't know.
Probably. I got a
But-
text from Lauren this week that just said, "I think I'm in love with Kingfisher."
Valid.
I really am.
It's like same girl.
And then as they like kind of like get closer together, she like approaches him. It says he spread his legs, the hard, and I wrote the what now? It keeps going on.
I'm pretty sure it's like something about the hard set of his eyes or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
it's
it's
like-
nothing to do with
Yeah, nothing to
anything.
do
John's
with
like,
it.
"Whoa!"
Down south.
Hold on a second. Stop right there. I mean, don't stop.
Lower.
How does that feel, baby?
This whole scene, though, where Kingfisher is describing how Fae are better than humans, like their whole physical makeup with like extra internal organs and just being taller and stronger and like all the like, you
Bigger
know,
heart.
other details and yeah, a bigger heart. That's what he was talking
Yeah.
about. My note here was just the sweat, the hot sweaty emoji. I just wrote fans herself.
I wrote also right after this section. I wrote, not me blushing and giggling at Kingfisher's dirty talk, even though he just used the word sweet nectar unironically. Also, a cup, please do not call it that, my man. You've been alive for 1,700 years. You should know better by now. Just pro tip for anyone listening, don't call it that. However, I was introduced to my weakness that I did not know that Kingfisher had. It says, Fisher grinned so hard that a small dimple appeared, forming a deep groove in his cheek, a god's cursed dimple. And I wrote, my weakness, Callie!
I just love
This
that
is
I
it
know
for me.
you so much that when I read
know.
this, I was like, oh, Con's in for it.
Losing my mind. This is my vampire equivalent if they have dimples. That's it for me. I'm sold.
Jon showing off his dimples over there.
That's what did it. The dimples and the wink really solidified it for me.
That's so funny. Well, the chapter ends with Kingfisher taking off, and it said, right before my eyes, Fisher dematerialized into a blur of black sand and smoke. And I just wrote, hot.
He disappeared.
Big fan.
How attractive.
Big fan. Hate to see him leave, but love to watch him go.
Does that even apply in this situation? Like,
Yes, because it's hot when you just like go, I don't know.
when he gets Thanos away.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan. All right. Chapter 13, Duress. Ceres is running away. She sneaks out. And she's running away, and it says, now there was a fox in the bag, too. And I don't know why this was so funny to me. I just was not thinking about the fox anymore, and the fact that the fox was, like, being jumbled around in the backpack while she's, like, running through the halls. I could not stop laughing reading this section. But then she's talking to the fox when she gets down there, and she's like, stop, it's for your own good. He didn't. He was a fox, and he had no idea what the fuck I was asking him to do. You just can't. I'm obsessed with the writing in this book. It's so funny.
It is hilarious. Okay, well, I was reading this. I'm like super into the moment because you don't know that she took his ring. And it just kind of like starts with like, once he knows what I did, he'll be after me. And I'm like, oh, what did she do? And she's just like running and it's like super, super intense. And then I run across this line that says, I bolted across some sort of games court where 8 or more long-limbed fey females were gracefully volleying a ball back and forth to one another across a net. I was like, stop. I'm sorry, what? They're just casually playing volleyball. Like, chilling.
I totally missed that.
Like, run, intense. Oh, a volleyball match. Run. I was like, it took me out of it for a minute.
That's really funny.
It's also kind of funny, too, if you consider, like, they're in the Winter Palace, and it's not, like, a big winter
it's
sport.
Ice volleyball.
It was,
not
like,
sand volleyball.
snowing the other day.
Oh, that's funny.
They have a big match against the summer court in a couple weeks. Summer court? Is that what it's
Yeah.
called?
I ran past the rec center.
Ma'am, you don't have a badge. Whatever.
So random. It's such a random thing to throw in there. I just,
Now I want this is my first merch idea for
oh gosh.
Winter Palace Rec Center.
Oh, little volleyball Faye just going, oh. I agree. Out of all the things to include in this little run that she could have thought to include in the palace, volleyball was a bit out there.
Yeah, we're 8 or more long-limbed fey females. Like, they're not the short ones. They're
Well,
the tall
of course
ones.
not.
They're on the volleyball team. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so
Wow.
funny. Okay, and then while she's running, though, the Quicksilver starts talking to her. And in the audiobook, it's so cool where it's like the multi-voice and whatever. And it's like, the other way, another way, come. But this one, because I was like laughing about the fox and I'm laughing about the volleyball, and I had a full-on jump scare and screamed. Because it's like, the male narrator, when he does this voice, it's like really low and rumbly.
Yeah.
And it got me real bad in the specific first one of the chapter. But it's just so cool.
That's great.
And yeah, she finally makes it down to the pool under the palace, and it says, the chill that nipped at my skin wasn't from the cold, though. It was more than that. A sharp, probing presence that prickled at me, trying to worm its way inside. And on the reread, this like caught my attention. I don't remember this like specific description on my first read, but I was like, what is this? Because nothing's been described like this yet. Like with the Quicksilver, it's always the voices, and this is different. So I was like, just kind of like calling this to attention, at least for myself. Like, okay, this seems different somehow. Like, I don't know. Is it like just her being down there? It's like so cold that's what she's feeling, or could it be like a different presence other than the Quicksilver? Or is it just because there's so much of it down there? Since it's like they said, it's like the biggest pool that they know about, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Me neither. I did think the worm its way inside wording was interesting because, like, if that is referencing the Quicksilver, is that what happened to Kingfisher? Is that why it's like inside of his eyeball?
Well, he like stepped in and it like had actually touched him or whatever.
Right.
Okay, this is another one of my, how does Saris know this information? She should not know this information. And whenever Saris first meets the fox, she literally says, "What is a fox?" Like, what is that? I've never seen one of those before. And in this moment, the fox decides to run away. It says he has better night vision than I did, and he could smell fresh air from a mile away. And I was like, how does she know that he has better night vision and can smell fresh air from a mile away? You
So
just learned what a
valid.
fox was 10 minutes ago.
Wow.
Like, what the heck? But okay, Saris.
I
Be
did
smart
have
or
that
whatever.
same thought. Yeah. Go off, Queen.
Yeah, whatever.
Maybe while she was running, she was just like yelling, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" And all the other Fae were like, "It's a fox. Let me give you details about it." They
In
thought
the
she was
middle
saying,
of the
"What's a
volleyball game.
fox?"
What does the fox say? And she's running through the palace. hearing all
Ring,
the-
ding, 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 ding.
Oh, no. Oh, it's funny.
I had a little call out in this next section back to chapter 5. So in chapter 13, in Saris's POV, it says, "There had been no pain when I'd activated the silver earlier, only ... a key turning in my mind, a lock popping undone, a stream of energy invited to flow." And it reminded me of the quote from chapter 5 when Heron says, "Saris, no, do not touch the sword, do not turn the key. Do not open the gate. You've no idea the hell you will unleash on this place." But the repeated language there of like turning a key is really interesting to me. And I guess that's not like if she's like liquefying the silver. I just feel like that's interesting that he's saying like turning the key. And then Kingfisher even says like open the gate. So maybe that's a more common like phrase, but I thought that was interesting.
It's almost like she's the key since she has to be the one to actually open the door. And it doesn't work without anybody else. But yeah.
And she's
don't know.
popping and locking.
Yeah, she's popping and locking all over. And Zilvarin, here in Avelia.
She's
just-
turning herself, I guess, if she's the key. So, doing a little square dance or something. So sorry.
I thought it was super interesting, though, how she was like, okay, all I have to do is think about getting back to my brother. Think of Zilvarin. Think of this. And then she she gets ready to step into the Quicksilver. And then it's all of a sudden like, I don't know where I'm going. Like, what is happening? It was like she was going to get lost. And even Kingfisher was like, a lot of people would get lost or it would go crazy or would end up somewhere that like never ended up where they needed to go or however they described it earlier. I just thought it was weird that the Quicksilver is talking to her, trying to get her to open the key or be the key or whatever.
The gate, yeah.
And has said like, it's been sitting still for too long, whatever. And she seems to be the only person that we know of that can do this right now. And so I think it's weird that it would not try to like protect her somehow. Like it almost seemed like it was trying to like capture her and trap her some way. Like it was just really interesting how she just like almost lost. Like she was one step from stepping in and being like, where am I supposed to go? Like, and had lost it or whatever. I don't know. And then obviously
Maybe that
Kingfisher shows
happened.
up, but
Maybe that happened to Fenron when he was supposed to go to Zilvarin. Maybe he ended up going somewhere else.
yeah, maybe. It's just because it's his sword, right? His sword was the one that was in the...
Yeah, I guess
Not
that's true.
that, like, his sword couldn't end up somewhere else, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, then Kingfisher shows up, and so this is kind of my theory from earlier, and I think Jon even said something to the effect earlier in this episode, where Kingfisher has to know when Quicksilver is being activated because the Quicksilver's in his eyeball. And so it's like, even if he didn't know that Saris had stolen his ring, even if he didn't know she was down there, all of those things, whenever the Quicksilver turned on, he would know, oh, she's at the pool of Quicksilver because his eyeball was...
Because he's crying.
Because he's crying. And he's like, stop, making me cry. You stop this bully.
It makes him open up.
Yeah. I just imagine it like swirling around in there or something, like...
Yeah.
Because he can't get it out of his eye. I guess it's stuck in there.
Right.
That's the whole
They
point.
couldn't
So
remove it. Yeah.
yeah. So that means though, like anytime that Quicksilver's opened, that's my theory at least. I have no actual facts on this. That anytime Quicksilver is opened, he'll be able to know that it's happened.
That
Maybe
makes
not
sense.
where, but like that it has. And then it also would make sense why he specifically was the one that showed up when the Quicksilver was opened and he came through to Zilvarin. Nobody else was obviously in one of the rooms with the pool. They were just like guarding it outside, at least in the Winter Palace. And he would have like known and evaporated over there or whatever and then gone through. So that's my theory.
Nice. Okay, I like that. I feel like you're putting together all kinds of things that I was just vibe reading.
That's okay. I feel like maybe I'm married to Kyle. Kyle's not doing the theories, so I'm feeling like I got to step up.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Got to call the whole book in
I like
episode
it.
1.
I like it. Yeah.
Too late.
Dang it.
Welcome to episode 2.
No, I mean, all my theories last episode were so good.
Oh, gotcha.
These are
gotcha.
just, additions.
Yeah, icing on the cake.
To solidify this, here's my next very unserious note. Kingfisher's like, he keeps talking about how he's hungover. And so we get all the way to this part in chapter 13 where he's like down there trying to help her. And he's like, what part of I am hungover did you not fucking understand? And I was like, damn, how much alcohol did he drink to still be hungover with his ancient fae metabolism? I mean, it's been like half a day at this point.
I mean, obviously their bodies don't work the same way other fae that I've read about do, since he was able to bleed or like get
guess
cut
that's true.
by a human's punch. But I
need, like, a
agree. This also
healer.
surprised me.
Yeah.
But also, if they do truly have a stronger fae metabolism, that would bring them to the point where they would not be drinking human wine. They would make strong stuff for them.
Fairy wine.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And usually,
Yeah.
whenever I'm reading about a fae, they're in like the human world, and they're like, "Oh, your
Oh.
alcohol won't work on me." I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
how it goes.
Yeah.
My next note here is when she notices that he's got his sword with him, and it says Nimrel crackling with unseen power that drew darkness to it like a shroud. And I was just like, sweet. Love the description here of Nimrel.
Kingfisher also says here, your mind is as shallow as a fucking teacup. And I wrote BRB adding to my insult library.
Do you have an insult library?
I do now.
It's got one in there. So don't mess with the
You're
clown.
gonna roast them, Kyle.
She's always talking about teacups. I don't.
Well, I have some students who have like they share this huge document
Burn book.
on their phones that they just write quotes that people say and like dumb things that like something funny or like I've said it as I'm teaching and they're like, can I please write that in our quotes note or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I'll just do it real quick, whatever. Like because they just so anyways,
They're
you saying
carrying
that
around a
made me.
physical Tumblr page, is what you're saying. Just like
I think it's just
quotes
like
from
a
other
shared
people.
notes app on their phone. Like
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
John
and
and
they
I
just
have
all
one
write
of
in
those.
dumb quotes. Yeah.
We were talking about it today. It's called funniest thing you've said all year because John says that to me all the time. And I'll be like, is that really, though, the funniest thing I've said all year? So I started writing them down. And so I have a note now that has just a list every time. And it happened today. I had one today. And he was like, funniest thing you've said all year. So I put it, a new entry, and I put the date and then the
Can
What'd you say?
we
quote.
can we like as a collective
forget.
at like New Year's put them in like a bracket style competition and then you have to go through and explain each one to me and Kyle and then we can decide which one moves up. And then
A lot of them are
we
inappropriate.
decide as a group. Oh, okay, JK.
Oh, no.
Which one actually
But,
is
I
the
mean-
funniest of the year? That would be fun.
That would be really fun. This year so far, I only have 2, and they are from this month. So
Okay.
Nice.
haven't been very
Step
funny
up your
this
game.
year.
Come on.
I think sometimes you just forget to say it for a long period of time. There were a lot in 2024, but I started this doc in 2021, and then there were none in 2022,
Womp womp.
and then it
Not
picked back
funny
up
at all.
again. So
You're pregnant,
it's-
probably.
Yeah, I was. That's probably what it was. I was busy
Nobody's
having
funny when they're
children.
pregnant.
Not a very funny year, huh?
I don't think I slept that whole year.
Yep.
Oh, the one from today, though, to answer your question.
Yes.
Sorry, do you want me to read this?
Yeah, go ahead.
John. Okay, the one from today, my parents came over for like a cookout, and my mom brought a bunch of the food, and she said, I brought some dinner franks. I don't know why they're called that, but the girls will eat these, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, we have some anytime franks in the fridge. John said, funniest
Pretty
thing you
good.
said all year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just some
Pretty
regular hot
good.
dogs.
You and Kingfisher sounds like you'd be best friends.
Good stuff. But in addition to Connor's note here, it's also when Sarah says if he made it like through the Quicksilver, then she could too. And he replies, I'm stronger than you, idiot. And I was like, this seems kind of juvenile, but honestly facts. Like especially after learning that, he's 1700 years old, he's Fae, and then he kind of goes on to say like, I've warded my mind and like protected all that stuff so that like I'm obviously much stronger than you. So I thought this was really funny.
It's almost like he's just at his like breaking point, and obviously he like kind of caves in this moment and tries to go get Hayden, and so it's like he's running out of insults to say. It's like he's just over it. She's
I
crying.
thought I was gonna sneeze again.
Oh, okay.
Look at the light.
That doesn't work.
Hold
does.
on tight. This is the dream.
Have you guys ever,
That's all I need.
if you've like felt the need to sneeze, if you stare into like a brighter light or something like the sun or a light, like it'll make you sneeze.
You don't stare at the sun,
But
John.
I don't wanna
That is not
sneeze.
something you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You don't
You
want
don't
to
want to
sneeze.
sneeze?
No.
Sneezing is a guilty pleasure. Like when I have to sneeze, I'm like, bring it.
Let's get this thing over
This is
with.
gonna be a good one.
Excuse me?
Nothing
No,
like
it
a
feels
big
trying to
good to
enhance
sneeze
the
to get it
sneeze.
out of your system.
Anybody
I've
got
never
any
tried
pepper?
the light method, but I usually can just make myself sneeze. The same way, like if I am choking, I can just choose to move the food out. That's it. This is one of those weird things about me that, like, when I was growing up, I didn't understand other human perspectives because they're like, I'm choking, and I was like, don't then, like, just regurgitate, my dad. Like, it's not that hard.
My guy.
Wow.
Oh my
But yeah,
God.
sneezing, the same thing. I'm like, if I feel sneeze coming, I'm like, I'm gonna fully give into this. Sneeze us, take the wheel.
Oh my god. Oh, that's a shirt. Oh,
man.
that's one of the best things I've ever heard in my entire
Funniest thing you've said all year,
I gotta
Kyle.
put it in my note.
Write it down.
Funniest thing I've said all year.
New shared note.
Frickin' sneezes take the wheel.
So
Oh.
dumb is what that is.
It was regurgitate my guy for me.
Oh my God.
Holy cow.
Wow.
That is
Anyway,
gold.
we got like way off track with that one.
This whole episode has been way off track. It's fine.
These are the best ones. All right. Next up, Kingfisher's hair fell into his eyes, the dark waves framing his face. Hot. The muscle in his jaw working. So drink, everybody.
1,
Drink, mother.
2, 3. Okay, so when Kingfisher like finally decides he's gonna go and try to get Hayden and bring him back, he like squats down to get on her eye level, and it says, as if he were reading my mind, and then he like goes ahead and gives his whole entire plan. And I just can't, I'm just putting this as like a little side note that I have stated it here way early in this series, that anytime, like I've been fooled in the past, anytime a character says as if they were reading my mind, or they answer even though no one asked the question, and like those kinds of things, or they didn't say it out loud, I'm always worried that somebody's can actually read minds. And since Kingfisher can do like all sorts of cool magic-y stuff right now, I wouldn't put it past him. Who
is
knows?
magic.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
he is
I got
magic.
this in my thoughts and theories. I am right
Yeah.
there with you.
So I'm just stating it now, that potential, because of these like 7 words, maybe Kingfisher can read minds.
Maybe.
Maybe. Guess we'll find out.
Guess we will.
Silence.
And he tells her to like close the portal behind him and like reopen it in an hour. And she's like, well, I really think I should leave it open. And he's like, what if a horde of feeders burst through? Like, ... He like kind of goes on to talk a little bit. And I just had, ladies, any guesses or fun ideas on what a feeder is?
Lauren, my goodness.
I wrote, you during a podcast?
I saw the light leave his eyes.
He literally just had to put his snacks away. My favorite episodes are the one where we're like recording and all is fine. And like in real life, we had to take a pause because something happened with the editing, or somebody had to use the bathroom. And then all of a sudden the video cuts back and you just see John holding a bowl of cereal.
Nothing to
front
see
of the
here.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Nothing at all.
Magic.
Do you have any
This is
true
editing
guesses?
magic.
Seriously.
I don't actually know what a feeder is. A vampire?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you for guesses or fun ideas.
I'll take that. I'll take that as a vampire.
Oh my goodness.
Fangs
I
are mentioned
didn't-
once.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think about
They
this.
said they drank blood to stay alive. That's literally what a vampire is. And then it was like taken away.
Well,
but
they
who's
said
to
that's
say it
what-
wasn't taken away from all?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, that's what they said the Fae used to be.
Yeah, but
Back
Kyle
in the
was
day.
saying, like, they mentioned fangs once, and now everything's a vampire.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why I was defending myself.
I got
I said it much hotter than that.
Maybe it's Madra, and that's how she's staying alive for so long. She's like feeding on.
She is the horde of feeders.
She is.
is
a
the
whore.
Whore.
Maybe she
It's
is.
just a bunch of feeders in a trench coat.
Whore.
There is no queen.
Okay.
Maybe, though.
Well-
Maybe she's a feeder, and then all the prisoners that go in and then never come back out. It's because
Yeah.
she's...
I'll tell you what I thought it was on my first reading through. I'm not going to tell you how accurate it was. But anytime I hear horde in any sort of eating,
Vampire? I mean,
I immediately
zombie?
go to zombie. Yeah, like that's immediately
sure.
what my first thought was,
Yeah.
like some sort of zombie-ish thing. That's like as soon when I was on my first read, I was like,
Walker.
oh, they got some like weird little silver zombies or whatever. But that was
Yeah.
what
Like
that's
they've
where I
gone
went.
mad.
Wander between realms, and they.
And they've gone mad
Like
from the
trapped in
silver.
there for so long.
Oh, yeah, nice.
You know, maybe not even truly dead, just like hungry for anything.
Nice.
Unalive.
I like it. I don't,
Cool.
Nice.
but I do.
Oh, so zombies are the monsters where you cross the line. Vampires, werewolves, fine, but no hot zombies.
No,
The very first movie you ever showed me
I
on
know,
purpose
because you were literally that guy.
Was
What is that
about
movie called?
about a hot zombie. I don't remember what it was called. I barely remember the movie because I was drugged up out of my mind with this
Oh,
like heart stuff.
I thought you were gonna be like, because I was making out with you.
I barely
I forgot
remember.
you guys were friends.
I certainly wasn't looking at the screen.
Okay, it's called
wow.
it's called Warm Bodies is what it's called.
Oh,
Warm Body.
yeah.
And it's where like the humans kind of like exist around the vampire or oh my god, vampires just stuck in my brain. Around the zombies but like this one zombie weirdly becomes attached to one of the girls and
Yeah.
it's
Is that Megan
literally I don't think so. It's literally Romeo and Juliet. Is actually like when I searched
Oh.
it just now, I wrote Romeo and Juliet zombies,
It's actually
and this movie
figuratively
came up.
Romeo and-
But it's literally that story, except for he's a zombie and she's not.
Yeah.
But he looks kind of like Kyle. He also wears this red jacket that Kyle always wore while we were in college, and he just kind of shuffled around and then met some super talkative blonde girl and fell in love, and then his heart started beating. And so it's literally me and Kyle.
Maybe that's the real romance of this book. Maybe it's one of the feeders.
Oh.
Maybe.
But yes, a horde, I would assume means is like a not fully, I don't know, sentient's probably not the right word, but like more of an animal, I guess.
Tame
Yeah.
or in
Something
control.
that flies.
or-
Yeah. Okay. My next note is Blood Oath. Hell yeah.
I was not expecting that.
All right.
I was super excited about the Blood Oath because I figured there would be some sort of like sneaky little, you know, what's it called?
Sex?
Sneaky sex. Ooh.
Exactly. Thank you. My actual little sub note here, though, is Sarah says, just get on with, and then she gets cut off, and it says, Kingfisher slapped his palm against mine and held on tight. And I put the gif of the dog shaking the guy's hand. It's like, how the hell are ya?
And I wrote, I am so proud.
Just slapped his palm against hers.
That's exactly what happened.
My note in response to this was just a Fey blood oath, no less. On my first read, definitely triggered some alarms. Like Lauren has said several times, I love the concept of the Fey and D&D and all that. So like the amount of times I read that sentence of the deal, I was like, I'm gonna get this word for word or whatever. But it definitely like some alarms went off. I was paying attention.
Oh yeah, I was freaking out just because, like in the last episode, I was saying like never give the Fae your name, like all these rules that
Yep.
you have to know, and so you never. You got to be careful with making deals.
Yeah, Sarah's.
They're tricky.
I'm not mad about it, though.
I just wrote here that, like, I don't know. I just had this thought, like his demeanor leading up to this and trying to explain that Bellicon would kind of be the one to like hurt her and all that. I was thinking that, like, at least he's kind of trying to help her in his own way instead of being a dick the whole time. He's just like, I think I said it in the last episode that he's very straight to the point. He's just like very factual, which I appreciate. Like no sugarcoating it. Even though he kind of uses this, he like tricks her in a way with like the
Yeah,
wording.
he does.
But yeah, he kind of like got on her level a little bit, and he's like, listen, like Bellicon is gonna hurt you. Like, just let me go, get him, whatever.
Yeah. When Saris first gets down there and the fox, like she like lets the fox out of the bag and he runs away. I was like, are we gonna get like a little Ratatouille moment with this fox coming back at some point? And then he does. And then so my note is that
Ratatouille moment.
Ratatouille moment, like in Ratatouille, when what's his name, Linguini, like brings he's like down by the river with the rat, down by the river with the rat.
I knew it was coming.
Sorry, and he's like, okay, little buddy, I'm gonna trust you. And he opens the jar and he lets him out and he like scurries away. And he's like, oh man. And then Ratatouille like comes back.
His name is Remy. His name is
Remy.
not Ratatouille.
Remy,
I thought,
But it's a Ratatouille moment.
the rat of all my dreams. I thought you were talking about like Saris was gonna put the fox on her head.
That's what I thought too. I was like, what are
Under
you
her
talking
hat.
about?
That's what I was like, what are you doing, moment?
What
I
book
was
are
like-
you reading? I
just
expected
stays
to
in her
flip back and be like, oh yeah, weird. I missed that the first time.
I also thought the same thing. So, is she going to put the bag on her head? Like, what is she going to do here?
Or he stays in the backpack and he just like comes out and pulls her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, scratches her back.
I just added to this note because, like, then it sneezes, which is also just like kind of a super cute little animal thing. But also, there's the line here when it says, Onyx wasn't happy when I set him down on top of my bag. He observed with baleful eyes as I stood at the edge of the pool and carefully reached out. And it kind of goes on. And I wrote here, I wish that Callie would have written in like a yawn from Onyx here. I felt like it just would have like added like nothing's going on. He's just like hanging out. Like, you know, he observed with baleful eyes and a toothy yawn as I stood at the edge of the pool. Like, I don't know. I just thought it would have been kind of funny and cute.
This was cute, but it happened a few times. And then I was like, is something wrong? Like, what's happening? Why is he keep
Allergies.
sneezing?
He's cold.
Terrible in the
Yeah,
Winter Palace this
Yeah.
time of year.
Dusty in
Pollen.
there.
And then, of course, the moment when Fisher comes back out of the pool and it says he didn't respond. He growled, his back arcing, the heels of his leather boots leaving black streaks against the stone as he writhed. And this is like before she gets the pendant back on him. And I was like, first, to be fair with Lauren's theory, this behavior is very werewolf transformation-y.
Thank you.
Very, like, any kind
I
of...
also wrote that.
Yeah, yeah. And then second, so before I explain the GIF in my notes, I imagined him like writhing on the ground and like his boots very similar to like the tennis shoes with the traction thing. Is it's just like, because it's just them, it's just those two. It's just like really quiet, and he's just like writhing, and it's just like it's his shoes. But the gift that I put in here is Kronk from Emperor's New Groove when he's talking to the squirrel, and he goes, "Squeaky, squeak, squeaker, squeaking." That's all I can.
That was a
think of,
great
dude.
Kronk voice.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
I can do that guy's voice pretty well. He also does Joe from Family Guy. It's the same voice.
I
Anyway.
thought you put that one in the wrong spot, and you meant it for talking to Onyx.
Nope.
I was
Oh,
like-
that would have been funny too. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's funny. And then when he like tells her to hurry up and like close the portal quick, and when she does, it says, "I slammed my palms together in my mind, closing the door tight, and with a crack, the pool answered my demand, solidifying so fast that it shattered the stone lintel that ran around the pool." And I was like, damn, like this is one of those things where we see that she has some kind of power like early, but then there's like a moment when there's like a desperate need for her to do it to make it work, and this is one of those like she's able to like turn it on in like a desperate time of need, and it's just like and just slams it shut. This was crazy. I don't remember this detail in my first read, so this is pretty cool to reread.
I love it. Well, you know, I was losing my shit at the end of chapter 13 when Kingfisher comes back out of the pool. And as soon as like he just like throws the limp body on the ground, I was like, why are we not concerned about that? Okay. He's just throwing the body around. And then she goes back home carrying fucking Swift. It was dying laughing. I even had a note at the beginning of chapter 14 that I was still laughing because I just thought the This whole sequence was so funny. I expected something like that to happen, but the way it was written was just so good. And I had to throw in a gif from Brooklyn Nine-Nine here where the literal quote of Sarah's realizing it's not Hayden is her going, oh no. And so I put in the gif of Captain Holt going, oh no.
I
That's all
screenshot
could
this
picture.
part and sent it to Con, and I said, "Did you lose your mind? Like, did you freak out?" She goes, "You know I did." So good.
I am so excited about this.
Even my sister texted, and she was like, "Carrie and Swift heart emoji heart." It's like you and Connor would be best friends.
Yes, I love it. So chapter 14, the fine print, my first highlight was when Kingfisher says about how he came out of there with Carrion. I tracked your bloodline. It led me right to him. I asked him who he was. He said he was Hayden Fane. Ergo, I brought you Hayden Fane. Which also the way this was read was hilarious. But I'm assuming Hayden was maybe with Carrion when Kingfisher found him. So Carrion made Hayden hide and pretended to be him in order to protect him. Or maybe Kingfisher actually just sent Ceres on him because they had sex. But either way,
I mean,
I'm
valid.
really hoping. Yeah, either way, I'm really hoping that that they're not related. I'm trusting Callie here with that one. But those are my two theories regarding why he ended up getting Carrion instead of Hayden.
Yeah, that was my assumption, was that he had already had Hayden and Ceres, they already felt very familiar, and so when Ceres would have been taken away, that he would have maybe taken it upon himself to take care of Hayden, or Hayden would have ran to Carrion for help or something, and so Carrion was pretending to be him to protect him. That was my guess, but the sex thing could also totally be valid.
I mean, it was months ago, but still. My next note, though, was just that this blood oath is juicy, and I love that she has to do everything he asks. This is amazing.
Well, my very next note was that I have to beg to differ. The blood oath is perhaps the biggest red flag yet. In fact, I don't even know if I'm qualified. This may go beyond a diary entry. I'm going to have to call in a couple, some professionals to deal with this one. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Oh my god, what is happening? Oh, John's getting up too.
I'm scared.
Are they doing a whole costume change? Oh my
god.
All right.
Butterfly?
Yeah, what's up? I'm the local OSHA guidelines expert, so I think it's safe to say
my god.
This blood oath was made with a bit of cruel and intentional oversight to the
Wait,
mortals.
hold on.
We gotta explain for our audio listeners.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The boys just came back in wearing high visibility vests and hard hats. And Kyle's has a sticker of a butterfly on the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my word.
Yeah. I'm
Continue.
just saying, we're OSHA guidelines, so
OSHA
the blood oath went a bit with cruel and intentional oversight of the mortal woman's knowledge of Fae custom, especially pertaining to blood oaths and their precise wording. So I believe this constitutes an OSHA violation. So unfortunately, Ceres' ignorance of blood oath's power does not render her immune to. So this will, as Kingfisher says, be a lesson to learn from. But we see this all the time, really, with mortals entering the Feywild, getting a little more than they bargained for, and leaving with a lot less than intended.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, a typical violation of 7A, 13B here, Kyle. I mean, if he keeps this up, she'll be walking on eggshells. And that's getting dangerously close to a 13A, 2A, addendum 1. And we all know how that went the last time we were called, absolute chaos.
Yeah, can't do that paperwork again. OSHA violation for sure. Not necessarily one that would bring us any cause to shut this story down, but we'll be keeping a close eye on this one. There's a lot of potential for this OSHA to become pretty violated in ways that might even get HR involved. Yes. For now, though, we'll continue. Hey, remember, folks, if it's bound in blood, it should be bound in regulation, all right? We'll see you next time.
Wow. I was not expecting an OSHA violation. Oh, hey,
I'd like
guys.
to thank our professionals for showing up.
Yeah,
Wow.
you just missed it. We had some
they were quick.
professionals.
The whole thing, yeah.
You missed it.
Hopefully they got it all settled out for you.
That was impressive. I know. My follow-up note, because obviously none of that was written in the script. I was very surprised about that. But my note here was just, I was surprised that you thought it was such a red flag, Kyle, just because as a DM and being super into being the person pretending to be the Fae to trick the player.
Well,
and that's something that's super classic Fae something. And
sure.
again, he has no ties to her whatsoever as far as a person goes. They're not in a
Hey, that's
relationship
fair.
forcing her to do anything.
That's
I was
fair.
very surprised.
Can't be a red flag. That's that's why I had to pass it off to the OSHA guys. That's a OSHA violation. I don't know if it's a red flag.
Oh my god. All right.
My next note, really, I'm still speechless from the OSHA violation. So they're getting on some horses to go to an unknown location, and they pull up to where the horses are, and Sarah's is like, no, absolutely not. And he's like, I'm guessing you don't like horses. And she says, no, I don't like horses. Horses don't like me. We mutually dislike each other. And I wrote, this makes me like Sarah's even more because I also do not like horses.
Is this like a micro trope that the main character doesn't like horses? Because I feel like I see this often.
I
Like,
don't know. I mean, Riddick didn't like horses, but he was. I wouldn't say
Selena
he's the
doesn't like
main
horses?
character. Oh, I
Peyton.
mean, she has one. Yeah, true.
mm-hmm.
So maybe this is just a micro trope that I identify with because I also do not like them. They're too
Even
big.
in the one we recently read that was specifically on a ranch, she didn't like horses, but she had valid reasons, honestly.
I don't know.
But you don't like Bill the horse?
Bill
How could you
was
not like
hilarious.
Bill?
I have a checkered past with Bills. Has he eaten any eyes?
I got a note on Bill for later as well.
That's a Throne of Glass callback that's really obscure and dumb unless you've listened to our podcast episodes on that.
Completely not a spoiler, though. Pretty sure it's like,
No.
2 or 3 chapters in.
Right
Yeah.
away.
First character death.
R.I.P. Bill.
in Throne of Glass.
The most talked about character on our podcast. The least amount of page time of any character on our podcast.
Okay, last note for chapter 14. Kingfisher says, Aida's a good girl. Heyo. But then Sarah thinks Aida probably was not a good girl. She was probably a hell bitch who was going to dump me on my ass at her earliest opportunity. Hell bitch made me laugh out loud. So I just had to include that in here. Adding to my insult library as well.
Too.
It's a good one. Yep. All right. Chapter 15. Sarish. My first note, this is the other Kyle rant that I was expecting. In Sarah's POV, it says, my panic cranked up to an 11. And I said, I cannot wait for Kyle's rant about this.
I did. I had our little rant about it. I wrote, the sad thing is, would have been super forgivable if not for the 11. Like, I'd buy that her panic cranked. They have cranks, supposedly. I'd even buy that it went to 10. They seem like a society that would have like 1 to 10 scales now and again. But 11, a reference to a like niche mockumentary rock group? What is going on? Like, nobody says that unless you have seen Spinal Tap or anything inspired by it. It did get to me a little bit. That and the Cliff Notes. It's like weird modern talk. I don't sometimes mind when fantasy has like modernized
It's the volleyball
talk.
for me.
Volleyball was a bit weird too. Yeah, I didn't even catch that one until I saw it in your notes. But yeah, it's kind of like weirdly, just weird.
It's like,
Weirdly weird.
yeah. The volleyball thing, I think, is just a funny, weird on add-in world building. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? It's your world. If you like volleyball, let them play it.
Yeah.
That's fine. The Cliff Notes one, that really gets me.
Yeah. Well, that and this sort of to like your point, Lauren, is like the characters saying things they shouldn't know about. Mm-hmm. Like in a smaller sense and within their world, yeah, she shouldn't know a fox has night vision. They should not know anything about cranking it to 11 or Cliff Notes or anything, but they are still saying it. And it's like a little bit of probably the author spilling in.
Yeah. Oh, so the whole entire walk, Saris is like worried about like not being able to see anything like while they're on this horse ride and all of the things. And just Kingfisher like casually says, well, bring Aida up alongside me and I'll gift you with temporary sight. And I was like, excuse me? Can I just, yeah, huh? Can I please just have a list of all of his powers and abilities, please? So I'm like, that'd be very convenient. Yeah. And it's like, if he's able to gift her sight, why can't he just be reading her mind or like all this other random stuff? Like, I just feel like he can do anything.
Yeah.
Very surprised by that. But
yeah.
sure.
And she was just like, no.
I was like, no thanks.
It would be cool to see them use that later in like a battle sequence or something, though, if like he can just, I don't know, give her his sight or something and then like I don't know, some kind of cool fighting moment.
I really liked seeing the weird like twitching that you did as you tried to come up with the words for the
when you're
thing you were going to say.
That's how you do that.
Sounds like an epic battle.
I am there right now.
It's like he gave me sight. The whole entire time that she's on this horse, though, and all of her complaining and all of the things were hilarious. But the one that really got me was when she said that she had like bumps and bruises everywhere. And it said, along with far more sensitive parts of my anatomy that felt like they were being rubbed raw and not in the fun way. That's so funny.
I highlighted that too.
Funny.
Yeah, and his response to that comment is, I'll happily kiss all of your aches and pains better for you once we strike camp. I've been told my mouth has healing properties, especially when administered between a pair of thighs. And my note here was that Con had no note. And I was like, no note here, Con? I was like, Lauren, come on. You got to have something here.
I highlighted it.
You highlighted it. Okay, that's it.
I
Just a
mean,
highlight.
I have no notes about that.
Mine was much more like a giggly highlight.
I see.
Just a highlight, not for the podcast. This one's just for me.
Yeah, exactly. Just a highlight only, no note, just so I can go back to it when I want to. Find it easily. And my next note was when Kingfisher says, and here I was rankled as the thought of having to drag you around helpless. And I wrote, rankled, my new favorite word.
Is rankled the new twangin'?
Well, so I don't mind rankled. Twangin',
Yeah.
don't get me started. But, and then here's my note about Bill. And I just highlighted when she says, Bill, who names their horse Bill? And we've, like they said earlier, if you've gone through our Throne of Glass series, there's Bill the Eye Eater, but also common names. We had a running joke that common names were also killed off very quickly. So I wrote, Bill, I'm afraid we have some bad news for you. We'll see what happens.
I also have had that thought about Hayden and his normal name.
I'm saying.
It's not too common of a
Borderline
name.
normal.
I
Okay,
feel
but
like.
like when everyone else is named Kingfisher.
Yeah.
Well, only one person is named King. I want to be very clear.
There's only one. Yes.
Yeah, there is only. Sorry.
There is only one. My bad.
This book makes a lot more sense now.
Who are all these kingfishers?
Which one are they talking about?
They keep describing him so vividly, so it must be a new guy each time.
Okay, my main note from this little scene where they first walk into the tavern was just that I love that there are a ton of different kinds of creatures. Like, that's always kind of a fun thing in a fantasy world. I feel like I've read a lot that where it's just humans or just humans and fae, but it's kind of fun when there are, like, when they add in all of these other different types of creatures and stuff.
Yeah.
And more redheads. Thank you, Callie Hart. Represent.
You're not even naturally red.
I know. There's not enough of us. I'm trying to represent.
It's funny. I feel like I just highlighted and I've talked about just all the like history and lore dumps that we've gotten here because I'm just trying to like put all the pieces together. But we learn a lot about how Kingfisher's dad and Bellicon, the king, current king, has like a super long history. It said that he saw what Bellicon was planning long before he murdered the royal family and stole the crown for himself. So that's a lot of information about Bellicon and how he got to his place of power. And so Kingfisher's dad took precautions and warded his lands so that neither Bellicon nor any of his supporters could cross into them. He was powerful and his wards were strong and they remain as solid as ever. So Bellicon cannot travel into the borders of Kalish, or he can travel to the border, but he cannot actually enter in. And as long as Kingfisher lives and like carries that line, those wards will stay up. So that's just super interesting information we get about Bellicon and how he became the king. And also potentially why Fisher's dad was like exiled out. Like there's obviously like some tension and some history there. And it makes me want to think that Kingfisher's dad's a good guy based off of this story. So then my theories about maybe him being the big bad in Sylvarin are not true. But I don't know. I also could see like his dad end up being just like somebody like Elroy or somebody we've already just like been around and then it will later be like, no, kind of, it was him the whole time kind of a thing. But
this also made me wonder like what their place was in like, if you want to say like Fae aristocracy or something, because they obviously knew who Bellicon was like before he was king, because he just said like he saw what Bellicon was planning long before he murdered the royal family, stole the crown. but also because I feel like they had to have known of each other fairly well because he was so eager to like wed Kingfisher's mom. And also because they like had money, as Lane like referenced earlier. So I'm like, I wonder who they were and kind of like the Fae royal hierarchy before like Belicon did that and like became king. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
It is super interesting that he would want to, like, obviously had tension or bad whatever with Kingfisher's dad, but then immediately married his
That's
mom.
what I mean. Yeah.
Like, that is super interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think Lane
like, what's
said
the
like a
reasons
year
behind that?
later or something. Like it was, seemed kind of
It was quick. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Especially in, like, Fae time where you live for thousands of bajillion years.
No.
True.
That's
Drama,
probably, like,
drama.
super quick to them.
It could also be that he thought, because it seemed like he was surprised about Kingfisher. So maybe he just thought that she was like a wealthy Fae female and he was expecting her to like be able to give him at least one kid. But he didn't know that she already had Kingfisher. So I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe he thought if he got with that family, he could get into college or something. Maybe there's something in there that he needs.
All right. My next note was when Renfis says the god swords are all dead. They're paperweights now. And I wrote, right. Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. But then
All
Kingfisher, oh yes. But then Kingfisher even says that sword is a holy fucking relic, Renfis. That bastard isn't fit to look upon it, let alone wield it. And you're wrong. Not all of the swords are dormant. Nimmerel, and then he gets cut off. So this was, first of all, interesting coming from someone who seems to hold like no reverence for the gods. But also, what the heck can Nimmerel do? And why does Renfis say that it's corrupted? Because that was like part of Renfis's retort, like that Nimmerel had been corrupted for years or something like that. So I'm very curious about that, and that Kingfisher was about to like defend Nimmerel by saying it could do something.
I didn't have any of this highlighted, but now that we're talking about it, what are the god swords and how many are there? If we know of these
don't know.
two. Is there like a
Is there
bajillion?
one for each god?
god? Are they lost? Are they in some sort of storage facility? Are they in the museum? Can we go look at them? Can we like...
Wouldn't you like to know,
Do we
Weather
know?
Boy?
Got her. Oh, weather.
They are. I think that I can't remember how well it is described here. They are just like a special sword, basically.
Oh.
I think I was onto something, and Kyle used humor to distract the conversation
And deflect.
and make me stop talking.
Well, we know obviously that there are.
If humor could do that, I would use it more often.
Oh my god.
Just kidding, I love you. Just kidding, I love you.
We obviously know that there are two, right? Nimmerel
Yes.
and Solus.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that they have, I mean, some kind of power, at least. We know that Solus was able to, like, stop the Quicksilver, and that only god swords can do that, or, like,
He
still
almost
it or
says
whatever.
something about his sword at one point, that it was like...
Well, it's like an Alchemerian sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if like all Alchemerian swords would be considered god swords, or if
right.
there's something special about them. Like, because it's like isn't it only the Alchemerian swords can like stop the Quicksilver?
I think so.
Well, I mean, are you asking if they're different? Because we know that
Yeah, I
Solus
guess-
is a god sword, and that's the
Right.
sword that was stuck in the pool at Zavarin.
And so is
Right,
Nimmerel.
but then-
So we at least know these two.
Yeah, because Renfis says the god swords are all dead, and he says you're wrong. Not all of the swords are dormant. Nimmerel, so I'm assuming Nimmerel is also a god sword, and we know that it's also Alchemerian. But I don't know if like those are the same, or if it
Oh, I
has
see
to
what
be.
you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know if all Alchemerian swords are considered that. Or if it has to be, yeah, if it has to be something that an alchemist has, like, specifically created as a relic, or I don't know if that's the same.
I know there is that detail that they mentioned that, like, only Kingfisher says it. Only the person who, it's when she burns her hand when she tries to touch it.
Oh.
And he says
Yes.
only somebody, like, bound to an Alchemerian sword or something like that can wield it or
Yeah.
touch it or something like that.
That's right. But
But-
then
Or
also,
bound or
it's
whatever.
interesting that it could be considered corrupted.
Yeah,
Like, how would it be corrupted, and what would that mean?
exactly.
Because Renfis was saying it like it was an insult, and Kingfisher was like defending Nimmerel almost. So that was interesting to me. But then one of the guys in the tavern says to Kingfisher, "My cousin fought with you and your wolves at Ajin Sky." And I was like, "What wolves?" And then I wrote, "Lauren?" ? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Freaking out over here in this chapter section.
There's literally vampires and wolves, and he's a shadow daddy. I'm here for it all. And then I just feel like the name Kingfisher is really weird. I keep trying to figure out like if it means something or it's like not going to end up being his real name, like a title or whatever. And somebody in this moment, when they're calling him a bunch of different titles, calls him the Fisher King.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so maybe it is a title and he's the king of the fishers, whoever they are. Like there's the feeders and the fishers. And
Yeah, he's going fishing in the Quicksilver pool.
yeah, exactly. And he's the king of that. He's so good at it.
Got a whole horde of feeders today.
It's the bait
Yeah.
you use to catch the little fishers.
Little
There's just
fisher.
little fishers in there.
Teach a king to fish. Yeah, I was thinking initially he was like the fisher for the king, like his title Kingfisher because he was in the court or whatever. But then he's calling him the Fisher King here, like he's king of the fishers. And I
Yes.
still don't know.
Well, and
what
it's
that
like
means.
it's like capital letters, like it's a title.
Yeah,
So-
you're the Fisher King.
Yeah.
You can't be anyone else.
Yeah, he's not a werewolf. He turns into a wolf head trout.
It's like in Moana, shark head.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of Kingfisher, a muscle then ticked in his jaw. Last clinkies of the episode.
Kinky.
Kinky clinkies? I don't think I like that.
Kinky.
That's what I said.
It's an Austin Powers reference.
Oh, okay.
No. All right. The last line of this chapter section in Ceres's POV. To me, Kingfisher was a surly, foul-mouthed bastard who I wouldn't piss on even if he was on fire. To everyone inside this tavern, he was a living fucking god. And I wrote, yay, of course he is. What's a morally gray shadow daddy without a noble backstory?
Just really quickly for the morally gray thing.
Uh-huh.
Would you say he's morally gray? I mean, at this point, with like
Yes.
what you've read so far and stuff. Okay, that's fine.
Right?
I don't know. I just feel like morally gray is thrown around for anyone with a bad boy vibe.
Yeah.
But he's so far like
You just
know,
called an OSHA violation on him doing a fey whatever. Like,
Hey,
you're
look,
not gonna
good
say
men have
that's-
fallen to OSHA. So,
Very
You're not going to say that's like,
but the thing
you
is,
know, some of your
you're
morals
not
will have a gray line.
morally gray isn't doing something slightly icky for
Well,
the better good. If you're still working for the better good, you're morally good. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are doing good and bad things, then you are morally gray. But if what you are doing is a little off-putting but ultimately good, you're not morally gray.
Well, see, at this point, we don't know, and he's supposed to appear morally gray because we do have confirmation that he, like, razed an entire city to the ground or something. So we do have that, and there seems like all the people in the court, like, hate him for all the terrible, nasty things he's done. It's more of his reputation than, like,
Yes.
we don't know the motive behind it yet.
I totally understand, like, yeah, where we are in this book, not really knowing his motivations. There are just a lot of other characters in other books who are still called morally gray after being sort of revealed, like, oh, they were doing it for these reasons the whole time. Love myself a morally gray, whatever. And I'm like, they're not morally gray, though. They were doing the right thing the whole time. That's not gray. That's good. I was just
think
curious.
it's more along the lines of, like, if you're still murdering people for the sake of that good, there's still some
Yeah,
blurred
you sound
lines.
like you're trying to cover up doing bad things.
No,
By saying, but I had good
No,
intentions.
I feel like
fine.
I feel like he's arguing semantics about the morally gray identifier.
Well, because there are actual morally gray characters who do good things and they do bad things. And that is where they stand. You don't know which side they're going to be on. It's just, I was reading another book earlier and thought of Kingfisher and other books we have written who are described as morally gray. And I was like, well, there are characters who are truly gray, who do both good and bad things. So that keeps them in the center.
I feel like when people say morally gray in reference to stuff like this, it's not so much about the motive as it is the action. Just generally, when people are talking about like a morally gray shadow daddy, it's like,
I guess.
I think he's drawing attention to the buzzword that is morally gray for
Right.
some mailman characters.
mailman. So I guess it's all. I mean, it's all relative. Like, would you consider Kale Westfall morally gray? Because there are parts of the book where he kind of sucks and he makes some bad calls.
No, because he
'Cause it was his
kind of
motive.
sucking as a person and your personality is not being evil. It's just kind of sucking. Like,
So,
you know,
it's a mix of things for good intent and things for evil intent. That's
yeah,
what
if you're
creates
doing
the
things
gray.
that are like, so like the most gray I could think of is like, to the highest bidder, you'll do any job as long as you're paid. Whether that is building an orphanage or that is killing a child. If you get paid, you don't care what you do. That's gray.
Anyway.
I don't know. It was just a question that bothered me today. I was just curious.
All right, that is the end of our chapter section for this week. Let's talk to the ladies about your current characters, thoughts, feelings.
I love
What are
them.
your feelings? Yeah, we already know your one feeling, or your one character feeling, I should say.
Your one feeling.
Your one.
Only has one feeling.
I love these characters. I'm obsessed with all of the banter. I think Onyx, the pet fox, is really funny as a concept, but also super cute. I cannot express to you how excited I am for Carrion to wake up, because that's just about to be hilarious. I am still a really big fan of Saris, even though she still does the whole like reluctant hotness bit. I still love her. It's fine. I also love that we're getting a little more depth into Kingfisher and Renfus here. I am very excited for Kingfisher's inevitable dirty talk, but even more excited for him to be jealous and annoyed as hell over Carrion.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely going to be a thing. Do I just go?
Sorry, Lauren.
Okay. Thanks, John. Okay, so I feel like every single time I start a new book or a new series and I meet a new like classic book boyfriend, I say I love them more and more than the last. And I understand that's like, you know, me just being in a habit or being in a, you know, doing the same old, but here I am again because A.O. Kingfisher.
Nice.
I love Kingfisher so much. I am a big, big, big fan. He probably is, and will be just like, I'm just my favorite. Like, I just love him. All the things. And he better not let me down. He better not let me down. I'm also super excited that Renfus is still with the group. Like, he joined in this last little bit because I was sad when we were leaving and it was just the two of them because I love Renfus too. I am sad to leave Lane behind. I'm worried that she's going to get like super upset that she's being left out or something because I really loved their little girl friendship that they were building. So I hope that she somehow ends up wherever they are too because I really love her and I hope she stays like on team good guys. I don't know if they're good or bad. I don't know what's happening and morally gray or whatever. I hope that she stays friends with Saris. And then I just really liked the world building of this section and knowing more about these types of vampires. I mean werewolves. I mean the Fae, as well as like the goblins and the other like beings and creatures and stuff in the pub. Like that whole, I just loved all of it. It was really cool.
Any thoughts and theories for the future?
I don't feel like I have a lot right now, or at least not that are like solid. I do think Elroy could be an alchemist as well, or maybe he was really close to one and understands Saris's abilities way more than he let on. There has been some hinting at Kingfisher being able to read minds potentially. That was something Lauren mentioned earlier, so same page. In John's recap, he also mentioned everyone is assuming that Saris is the second type of alchemist, but maybe she's actually like more than that, or I don't know, has some more abilities than just what we think right now. But more than anything, I really love that I have no idea where this book is going. So I don't really have any other new theories right now.
Yes.
Lauren?
I also have zero ideas of where this story is going. I got no idea. I feel like I gave a lot of my theories in the episode and actually just chatting about it and stuff. If this was a why choose romance, I'd have some ideas as to where this is going as Saris takes off on an adventure with Kingfisher, Renfus, and Carrion. Ayo. But, I mean, I don't really know what this book is. I didn't look up anything. I'm going in blind, so maybe I'll be pleasantly surped. And it is that kind of a book, but, you know, even if she's just with
Or Lauren and I will make our debut as fan fiction writers.
I don't know that I'd be ready to start writing and to write that. Like, that's the first thing I try to write.
That's the first one, yep. Inspiration.
That's funny. Okay, that takes us to the cry counter, and of course, none of us have cried yet. It's just building it all up for some sort of emotional reaction later. So, saving them all.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's all for this week, friends. Next week, we're discussing chapters 16 to 22, so please do read along with us to be part of the journey. Before you go, please take a moment to rate the episode and leave a nice little review for us. We would appreciate it. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well for more fun and exciting book content, updated podcast schedules, merch drops, and lots more. But as a gentle reminder, please do not send us any Quicksilver spoilers or memes on social media. Lauren and Con run that ish, and neither of them can monitor for spoilers right now. We do have a chat in our Discord that is intended for all the spoilers, and Lauren and Con aren't allowed in, so go crazy in there.
Yes, and that's it for this episode, but we're not done talking about books. Visit betweenpagesandfriends.com to join our Patreon, hop into our Discord to chat about our weekly episodes, join our book club, check out our merch, and follow along with everything we're reading on GoodReads and StoryGraph. Till then, don't touch the sword, don't open the gate. But also, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed.
Bye.
Brr.